Selectmen's
Talk to
meeting.
him
It is
first.
6:05
You should go
and it
first.
is November 15th.
For
If I
department.
could get
Yeah,
somebody to
alright.
make a
Why,
motion
you
regarding the
wanna get out
waiving
here,
of the
No, I'm
Zoom
gonna go
tax.
after.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Whitman seconds.
And roll call,
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman aye.
and Nichols' eye, and we'll start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First on the agenda is the Treasury warrant 22W10 and payroll 22PW10.
Motion to sign,
Whitman seconds.
Any discussion? Roll call,
clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman aye.
and Nichols' eye excluding any COA wages. And next on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes from 28th and the 20th of October and the 1st of November. And you wanna do them separate? Or we-
I think we'll have to because Skip wasn't at the joint meeting on the 20th.
Okay, so why don't we do October 28th first?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of October 28th, 2021.
Whitman seconds.
Okay, any comments or?
Sorry, Tamika, these are the ones
Yes.
I think that FinCom had picked up about adding the discussion for the citizens petition or whatever.
Yeah,
Yes, I don't know if I sent that revised copy of that.
Okay,
So I did add it to theirs before I posted it. So if you wanna make your motion with amendments, I'll make sure that the right copy gets posted.
okay.
okay.
I'll amend my motion to the amendments of the meeting minutes.
Whitman seconds that.
Okay,
And thanks to FinCom for catching that too, because I know that was a marathon meeting and everything, so.
so any other discussion? Roll call?
Benoit
Clock
eye?
abstain. Sorry.
Benoit eye?
Whitman aye.
And Nichols' eye. All right, November 1st.
Motion approved November 1st as written.
Do we have a second?
Whitman seconds.
Okay, any comments or amendments? No? All right, roll call,
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman aye.
and Nichols' eye. So, next is, do we have anybody for public comment? Yes, your name and address, please.
Carolyn Streeter, 11 Meadowbrook Circle.
Okay.
I was at the Board of Appeals meeting Thursday for the zoning board. And it was discussed that the Board of Selectmen at some point, I think in the past 3 months maybe, approved use of 285 Main Street for the building of a cell phone tower. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So it wasn't a matter of approving the use of that street. That's sort of a public access way now. We don't prohibit anybody from using that street. The only issue that was on the selectmen's agenda was to potentially, and we didn't vote, the board did not vote for it, to do an easement to allow electricity to run across the street if that cell tower is approved. The town is not taking any position whatsoever on the approval or disapproval of the cell tower itself. But if it is approved, the town potentially will move forward with an easement to allow electricity to run across the street.
Okay.
Okay.
So, if it's approved, but is that something that would have to, if that land was involved, 285 Main Street, would the school have to be involved in that decision and or the townspeople? Would that be presented at a town
So-
meeting?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, so as I understand it, the road is actually owned by the town. The school properties are actually owned by the town, so in general. The school has leases to their property, but the town generally owns that. Now, The question of the easements do have to go before a town meeting. So once if this board ever decided to grant that easement, we haven't done so far, just that we would consider that easement would actually go to town meeting for a vote.
Okay, and it's my understanding, based on talking to people who know much more about these things than I do, that it's not a public road and it's not a right-of-way. That it's not a town road.
It's actually considered what it is, there's Joe, it's considered a driveway or drive right now, right? Is that what they
Correct.
consider it?
Yep.
One of the things that the town wants to look at going forward, and that's what we're talking about, the easement, when the company approached us, they approached us simply about the easement. And I brought in the DPW director to talk about that easement and what the value of that easement might be in terms of the town giving that easement. We just weren't gonna give it to them for free. One of the things that the town wants to look at long-term is actually turning that into a town road, so that would be part of chapter 90.
Mm-hmm.
If one of the things being considered, the value for that easement, is a study that would set up the layout for what that road would be, is that the right way to say that, Joe? What's that study actually do? It lays out the road in some respect, doesn't it?
Yeah, you hire a surveyor to develop a right-of-way, or
So-
a decree plan.
Right, so what they would do is they would pay for that study in lieu of us giving them the easement, which we think is a fair value for the easement. All kinds of other issues about the south tower, the town has no position in whatsoever. But all we're looking at is the easement period. And that assumes that if it eventually gets approved or not, then if it gets approved, obviously we'll deal with the easement. If it doesn't get approved, that easement will just go away, we won't be even considering it.
And so tell me again, please, what happened, I think this was in August, maybe, this summer, what was the communication with AT&T, and tell me what you told me when you first started answering my question, about what was decided with AT&T at that time, a couple months ago?
With who? I'm sorry, I can't.
AT&T,
With
the petitioner.
AT&T.
Oh, with again, we haven't been involved in any of the process of the cell tower whatsoever. All that is being handled outside of the Board of Selectmen or us. The only specific issue we're even talking about is that easement, period.
And
Everything else is dealt outside of the Board of Selectmen or outside of my office.
okay, so tell me again, what was the issue that the was brought to the Board of Selectmen?
In order, the developer came to us and asked us if we'd be willing to give them an easement to run electricity across the street. That's the only discussion we've had. After discussing that with the DPW director and saying, okay, if we were to do that, what would be the value of that easement? I brought to the Board of Selectmen and said, is this something you might consider? The Board of Selectmen said, yes, this is something we might consider. And we simply sent a letter to the Zoning Board of Appeals, which allowed them to discuss the issue at the Zoning Board of Appeals. But there's no agreement to actually issue an easement at this time. And if we do, if the Board of Selectmen does at some point decide to do that, then that would have to go to town meeting for approval.
Okay, and there's two potential situations being discussed. Either, depending on where the access road to the cell phone tower comes off of, whether it comes off of Phillips Road or whether it comes off of the school driveway, that 285 Main Street town property would need to be used, as you're talking about, to run utility lines over, or to put a road in a curb cut with an access road coming off the school driveway. So there's two different plans. The plan that was presented at the Board of Appeals meeting was for a curb cut coming off the school driveway with the access road coming off 285 Main Street, which was different from what you discussed this summer.
Yeah, again, I had no discussions with about them as to locations or how they were gonna come in or out of that property. That really wasn't an issue for us, right? Again, we only were focusing on the easement issue. So the issue of how they go in or exit the road, that would be something that would be dealt by the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay, all right, so all that happened was they asked you if you would consider putting an easement in there, and if that is to happen, that goes to a town meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, name and address, please.
My name's David Gold. I'm at 4 Phillips Road in Rutland. And I just wanted a little clarification. You were talking about a town meeting vote down the line that might take place regarding the cell phone tower.
There wouldn't be the cell tower. The vote would simply be on the easement. All
If-
easements have to be approved at town meeting. So the easement itself would go before the town meeting, not the granting of the cell tower. That would be done through zoning board of appeals and other processes.
So the zoning board is the
That's-
deciding factor.
That's where the battle, well, the discussion should be held,
The,
correct?
yes, the, thank you.
Anybody else have any public comment? Dick?
Name Williams Overlook. Question I have for Joe or Ron, how are you coming along with buying the right-of-ways for the tip?
I'm saying? The
Right
tip,
of-
oh, for the tip project.
For the tip project?
So that's something that Joe's been working on, and we're gonna have to work with town attorneys to do all those right-of-ways. They're within Joe's budget, so he has the funds to do that, and Joe can give you the details of that process than I could, but that is something Joe has to consider for the tip process, that's all part of the project.
But it is moving on.
Can't do anything until the article is passed at the town meeting this week. That gives the Board of Selectmen the right to approve the purchase of additional easements and such for construction purposes.
Okay.
If I,
So there is an article on the upcoming warrant, if you want to review it, that basically gives us the legal ability to do just what you've suggested. Until that's done, there isn't a lot I can do.
Leah?
if I may, I've had a few residents reach out. It sounds like their property has already been staked, so they would see what the acquisition would be. Because my concern was it would go to town meeting and the residents wouldn't realize, and then it would pass, and then it would be even more. But my understanding from a few residents along that stretch is that their property has been staked to show where the line, the new line would be. Is that correct?
There's all kinds of work going on, Palm Augusta. I don't think it's all been staked appropriately yet, no.
Okay.
But what I can tell you is, that's federally funded, and there are very strict procedures we have to follow
Yep.
and document. So between the state's already been out here a couple of times to help us work through that.
You're still going ahead with the dam?
Does the project include updates to the culvert at Milton, at the
Moulton?
pond, Moulton Mill? Yes. That is part of the project, it is funded.
Right, I thought it was originally the dam or causeway was gonna be done first and then the road on top of that.
Done as one project.
You're gonna do it as one.
But that's means and methods, and once it goes out for bid, that's at the contractor's discretion. I mean, I'm not gonna tell you exactly how it's gonna be sequenced, I don't have that information.
I know, I've been trying to get information out of DCR about the draining of the pond. And
Actually, it's gonna be a siphon, and it's supposed to stay active during construction, unless you really want the pond drained.
Yes. I don't want anybody to have the headache in
I
100
believe that
years.
The current plans have a siphon to keep it active.
Okay. That's it.
Any other public comments? We don't have anybody on, Tamika, right?
Somebody's joining right now, I'm not sure if they're gonna wanna participate or not.
Does anybody here have anything? All right, then we're gonna go to department head updates. So, DPW.
Can I go first? Since I'm short.
Do you waive the right? I'm only going by the agenda. If you have no objection.
He's such a nice guy to me. So just giving you a quick update, this past weekend, we had our annual flu clinic, did about 170 adults and children, combined with us and the folks from Walgreens. That's about average for the last 4 years. We've been about actually the last 2 we were about 150. So we saw a nice little, 20-person jump, which is nice. Still continuing our COVID clinics. Last Wednesday we did like a little quiet hush-hush test run for the children 5 to 11 to see make sure everything went well with kids crying and spacing it out and getting after. So tomorrow is our first big day. We're 1 to 7. I think right now we've got about 450 kids on the tally, and I think between tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday, we're going to probably do somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 5 to 11-year-olds, and it's strictly just 5 to 11-year-olds those 3 days. So it's just the one dose that we're taking care of them with, and So like I said, last week, everything went fine, no issues, and, you know, we shouldn't have any issues this week, you know. Obviously, there's always the crying kid and the kid who won't, you know, let go of his mom or dad or whatever, but other than that, we haven't had any issues.
And that's like regional, right?
Yes, yeah, well, actually the state, we're open up to the
State,
state, yeah, but,
And are those all appointments? Have they actually made appointments?
we,
or
yeah,
they're
for
walking?
the children, we're doing appointment only.
Okay.
For the adults that we've been doing all along with either the booster or if they come in for a first or a second shot, we've done appointments and walk-ins.
Right.
But with children, we wanted to know how much we needed, because obviously we have to order the vaccine from the state. We wanted to make sure we always had enough to take care of both doses first, and then 3 weeks from now, the second dose.
I have a question if I may.
Sure.
Do you guys have any plans to go back into the schools? Because I know in middle of September, right, I think there were options for students to receive the vaccine in schools.
Yep,
You would work
yeah.
with the school nurses.
So,
Are you gonna see how the numbers play out as far as
you know
your-
what, the feedback we're getting from Worcester and other school, is that the younger age, it becomes an absolute issue, because, you know, they want the nurse's office to be a place for a kid to go and feel comfortable, and they're going there, getting a shot. Mom and dad aren't there, you know, so it's been not well received from what we're hearing back. So we think here, that way mom and dad can come with them, you know, when they're going up to the library afterwards if they want. We've got a whole bunch of things we're gonna do to, you know, once it's done, to keep their mind off it. So I think we'll keep it here. We did that just because it was the 12 to 15-year-old group seemed to be the group that was lagging in the whole Wachusett area. So we said, well, you know, let's try and go push it and hit the high schools and the middle schools. And it wasn't a huge turnout, you know, maybe had between all 5 middle schools and the high school, I think maybe 20 to 25 kids, you know, so you know, that's one of those ages that, you know, is gonna be hit or miss, and depending on the child and the parent. So with this, we figured we'd just keep it in-house here.
That's fine. Thank you.
Anybody else have any things for Scott?
So if I can make one quick comment, so as I said, we had the flu clinic this weekend. So for the past 15 years, we've done the flu clinic here. For the first probably 8 or 9, the state or federal government has always given us the dosage from, you know, child all the way up to adult to, you know, over 65. About 7 years ago, I think when there was all the budget crises and all that, the state pulled back and only gave us and, you know, other boards of health just 17 and under. And then they said for 18 and over, you either have to buy the vaccination from us or partner up with a pharmacy or the like. So that's kind of what we were doing with Walgreens and partnering with them. So for the past 7-8 years, when you've come to get a shot, if you're 17 and under, you went to our nurses where we get the doses from the state. And if you were an adult, 18 and over, you went to a pharmacist from Walgreens. So this past weekend, so it was Saturday morning, we had a call Friday night about 5 p.m. from Walgreens saying, as everybody, we have no pharmacist to give you for your clinic tomorrow. You know, I don't even have people to put in my pharmacies. And luckily, I have a way to talk to people. So I made a couple calls and they promised us somebody for only a couple hours, but we could have been left out, you know, hanging out, and that would have, you know, upset possibly 90 people. So having that happen, and I'm not asking anything now, but I just want to kind of FYI you guys, you know, if we were to want to buy the flu vaccine ourselves as a town, we figured cost would probably be in the $1,700 to $2,000 range, and that'd be something we'd have to do every year. So again, not even asking, but I'm just kind of throwing it out there that might be an option that we might want to take. I'm also going to talk to Fred at the pharmacy here in town, but the only thing that worries me is we need 2 or 3 people, pharmacists, to give the vaccine. So I don't know if he can, you know, give that many people for a couple hours on a Saturday. So we're looking at other options, but I just wanted you to know that might come. You know, I may be asking you again. We're not talking until October, November of 2022. So we've got a long way to. But I just wanted to throw that out to you that I might be coming back to you guys sometime during this year.
And you can't use volunteer nurses for
No, it's the buying of the vaccine
the-
itself.
oh, it's
So
actually the
it's
vaccine
17,
itself that's
18
brought,
bucks
okay.
per vaccine. We'll do probably no more than 100 people, so
Right.
I'm thinking 1,700 bucks, round number, you know?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, just so you know, Zoom is completely offline for a minute.
Okay. Do
Then
you
we
want us
need to
to
be offline
pause?
for a minute.
All right, we'll just take a break and then.
Can I make an offline comment?
Uh, Technically,
It's pretty
you're not
silly.
supposed to.
I was gonna say, if, to bump up the attendance of the middle school, high school group, a rock band.
Musical steps for the little ones. That's what the Museum of
Off
Science
the
is
record.
doing.
Yeah, well, we've got them going up to the library, and then we've got a couple mascots from area teams, and we've got them writing on the windows and everything. So we've
Oh,
got a
good.
good option for them.
Good. That's nice. Yeah. And there's a numbing spray.
I have to go kick those guys in the backside, because they should already be on. And then we'll be back online.
So weird, I didn't see what happened, all of a sudden. No, I looked down to write something, and I looked up, and it was off the screen, and I could always come up. I know, it's, Carol and I are like. Right. Escalated quickly, I know.
So he'll let us know, so that,
He's on.
that we're
There,
on now?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, hold on.
Recording in progress.
Okay, now you should be all
So
set.
Ron, you,
Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, Board of Health, Mr. Chairman, just to let you know, if you, I know you're looking at a variety of options, but if you choose to request funding, I would suggest you put it in the Board of Health budget, the Health Department's budget, and bring it forward with an explanation, and that will happen November, December time period when we're working on the budget.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
that's where you should introduce that if you have no other options.
Yep, and I just wanted to let you know that I'd be throwing that at you guys.
Should put it in there anyway.
does anybody have anything else for Scott?
Thanks, Scott, and for the whole team that's been doing so much. I know it's, every time you think you can catch a breath, something new comes. So thank you guys for hanging in for the long haul and working to keep us all healthy.
FEMA just announced through April of 2022 now, so. I don't know what that tells us about a fourth shot, but I hope not.
And congratulations again for your recognition from the chamber.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Nice event. All right, anything else? Thank you. All right, we'll go to DPW. Thank you for,
I printed out some snippets from a bunch of emails, and then to use as talking points, so I can get you guys caught up on some DPW stuff.
snippets.
There's a lot there, just see me point to them. You've probably seen most of them already anyways. So basically what I'm gonna cover is where we're at DPW operations wise, and then I'll get into some projects that are ongoing at this time. I sent these out maybe a week ago. These are updated table of organizations, and I think it's important to reflect on the fact that we had to make some significant changes due to some budget restraints a year ago, but at the same time, I think we're still resilient, and there's some positive things I want to point out on this first sheet here, the one from 21. Namely that we have 3 new water staffers, 2 with environmental science degrees, and we're starting to staff our own water operations plant again, which is it's a big deal. We also have a new sewer staffer on, and we're overall rebuilding. Our focus at this point, like I've said before, is trying to keep the roads passable, trying to keep the water safe to drink, and make it safe for anyone to flush. Yes, if we have any extra resources, we also try and comply with the other federal requirements, stormwater. Next up, I'll just go right to the sewer stuff, because this was a big win for us recently. You'll see a copy of a memo from DCR that makes reference to how much the town is actually owed, and myself and the town administrator are actively working with our local delegation to try and get some of that money back. If you want to speak just briefly.
Okay, just to let you know, I got an email today from Senator Goby. I think I told you guys that we applied for some ARPA funds for parking lots. And it was sort of a good news, bad news letter, that The bad news was that she put an amendment for funding for the parking lot, so we did not get the parking lot money. But she advised me that she got $90,000 of ARPA money to go towards the reimbursement that we're gonna get on the sewer charges. Now, that's only a part of those charges, but at least we have a source for the first 90 grand that will come to the town. So when that's approved, that first 90 grand will come in.
Roughly
And then-
225,000.
And then she says there's other funding mechanisms that she's looking at to get the balance of the money that we're owed, but at least it's a start, we're getting some of that money back.
Additionally, there's another DCR here that says it's a bill, basically. There's one here for a bill. And you'll see my handwritten notes there that say $209,725.19. But the bill is currently $165,528.96. And that was, that's a big win for us. That represents approximately a 26 or 27% reduction in the biggest sewer charge we pay to operate our sewer system, and that's gonna go on for some time. Some other things I want you to take, that you should probably take away from that, and I actually called DCR and worked through it with them. That also means we have more capacity than originally thought. And that puts us in a much better place from a development standpoint. We have a cushion we didn't have a couple of years ago. There's a lot on the DCR sewer stuff. They like to send a lot of paperwork, so if you wanna move on.
So with the decrease in those charges, Joe, is that gonna reflect a decrease in the charges to the residents or the users?
Our goal, to be frank with you, is to not raise them, or to slow down the rate at which they've been going up. Any of the money that would be, we'll know better at the end of the fiscal and see what actually gets retained earnings-wise. It is dependent on things like flow, it is dependent on things like heavy rains, but on the surface, this looks like a good long-term thing for us. And if anything, it'll be used to slow the rate at which we raise rates. We talked about, at the Board of Public Works meeting, about some II money that you folks just signed that contract for. That's the other piece of this work. That'll also help to get some of the groundwater and rainwater out of the line, which helps to keep those costs down.
If I may, I think this reduction is huge, given how wet the spring was
Right.
with this whole past year, because for a long time, we thought it was I, and some of it definitely, I think,
Some of it still
is.
is, it's just no
For
way around
sure,
it.
and I know that we have done some significant I work also, but this is big, so thank you for
Yeah, the
all the
refund,
work.
the refund is great, but this is a long-term investment in the system. We have more capacity, which will result in additional customers, which helps lower your rate overall, and it lowers our operating costs, which you can almost never do.
Before I forget, if I might, so I'm thinking as a person, so
Yeah.
this isn't
It's
a
tough to
question.
explain for a person.
It is, I still don't get it, but I think that if I was listening to this, I'd say, well, why am I not getting a rebate? But I think that this is the cleanest way to do it, not only for ease, but who do you really, if somebody just moved in a year ago, how do you refund them?
Right.
Somebody that's been here 7, 8, 9 years and new and leaving and coming, so I think it might take a minute to wrap your head around, but I think that that's probably the fairest and the easiest way to do it, so just a comment.
So a couple quick things. We have our sewer system here in Rutland, and we pay DCR to transport it through Holden and to Worcester. And then we pay to treat it, send it through Worcester. That's basically this bill here is the transportation cost to go from basically the Rutland town line to the treatment plant. It averages about 800,000 to $1 million annual. Once it gets to the treatment plant, it's $400,000 to $500,000 a year to treat it. So this is the biggest one we pay. 80% of our bill for water and sewer is transportation and treatment. So this is the transportation piece. Does that help explain what it is?
Yeah.
And this will, I assume, will help with capital expenses coming forward.
Exactly. That's where we'd only put any of that money back into the
Right.
system.
Now, I know there was some discussion at one point tying the community center in, because it's on
Yeah, we
a
looked at
private septic. Is that still something that's?
Still on the radar. It's gotta be surveyed.
a variety of options for funding for that too, we're looking at.
Okay.
one including ARPA money, but there's other options as well.
So unlike a year ago, we also have two full-time, back to the TO, we have two full-time sewer operators. And that helps us to be compliant with state and federal regulation, and that's been a recurring theme in this whole budget. We had our consultant look and find out what we needed to be compliant, at least bare minimum for state and federal regulations for operating your sewer system. They said you could go as high as 4, but bare minimum is 2, and we have 2 full-time workers, so that's a win for us. On to water. Do you see this one? We have 40 or 50 water meters we currently can't read from the curb. We've been playing with it for probably the better part of 3 or 4 months now. We got a hold of the manufacturer, we brought in an expert, and we've been able to get some of the meters to go back online. And the meters themselves are reading accurately. The problem is we can't read them from the street. So we have to get into these homes, and that's basically what this letter, this is what's going out to the folks whose meters we've been estimating, or their usage we've been estimating, I'm sorry. Those letters go out this week. There's another one here, right after that, that says Board of Certification Approved Temporary Emergency Certification for 6 months for Rutland Water, which basically carries us out to 4/1/2022. And that may seem like a very small thing, but I actually had to go before the Board of Registration and get emergency certification for the town to operate its water system. By law, we are supposed to have someone on staff with a T3. We currently don't. We should have someone there within the limits of this document. But we still, when we talk about everything that's gone down in our water department, we talk about it as a water emergency. And we're not out of the woods, but we're in much better shape. Any questions so far? If you want to go back to the TO just quick, and we'll talk a little bit about everybody's favorite subject, snow and ice. We ordered 200 tons of salt today. Getting ready to play with the snow and ice. You're looking up at it. It's coming. So some subtle changes we did this year. We are going to try and institute a brine program. Hopefully that will cut down on some of the salt use and be a little bit more environmentally friendly. The other thing we did was we've increased the number of private trucks we have to make up for the staff shortages. So by means of example, last year we had 3 private hired plow trucks. This year we have 5. Any questions on that? I brought in a bunch of drawings. I have a plan I'll leave with you that details how we do snow and ice.
May I ask, if it's okay,
You
what
want
is
to see
the
it now?
going- No, what is the going rate for the private plowing?
Oh, you had to ask me that. Maybe $80 an hour or $85 an hour.
I was just reading that somebody, what the state was paying, so
Yeah,
you're below that.
we're below the state, but we're competitive, and what we agreed to with anyone who commits to be here all winter. So we paid them at last year's rate, which I want to say is $80 or $85 an hour, and we will go up by $10 after January 1
And
That's
that's with their trucks.
with their trucks.
Yeah. And do you hire outside people to drive it? And you don't have anybody driving town trucks, obviously.
We do
other than
not,
town
just
trucks.
town staff.
And we have enough drivers for all the trucks for town?
Did you get your CDL?
I'm just looking at the staff, like, from the org chart from 2019 to 2021, and it's amazing how limited we are based on knowing what the population
How
growth.
efficient we've become.
That's the best I gotta be positive.
Just as a follow-up to my comment, the state is paying, don't everybody go that's gonna drive for us, but it's 132, so we're well below the state, if they're paying the truckers. So,
The other major project on the roadway side we've been working on is repairing gravel roads. We applied and got some Chapter 9 money to start doing gravel road repairs. I'd estimate $50,000 to $60,000 in gravel road repairs over the next 6 months to a year. We started mainly on Sassawana because that one was in the worst shape. And myself and the town administrator went round and round with the school department about trying to get some of those buses off those gravel roads, but I guess currently it's really not an option at this time.
They're not going to the smaller buses?
No.
What other, if I may, sorry, this isn't a conversation for here tonight, but what other, of the other 5 towns, who else has a lot of gravel roads that could have the same large school bus
That's-
impact?
Yeah, that's not been discussed with us, I don't know.
I was
I did ask that question.
Did you ask that question?
Yeah, and I didn't, they said Princeton has some, but by far we have the
The largest
volume, yeah.
amount and.
that are used so frequently.
Yeah, I was gonna say the number of students on the roads.
It's funny because no matter what we do with those roads, we get complaints. If they're not, you know, if we don't, you have to crown the middle so it comes off to the side, and people are complaining about that, and now they're complaining that they don't like it, that it kind of forces off to the gutters and stuff. No matter what you do out there, we can't seem to make anybody happy there, but you have to maintain those roads in such a way as that you have to have it slanted like that so the water runs off to it, that's why you do it, but people don't know, they just don't like the fact that, you know, they don't like the way it looks to them or the way it is. But we've had a lot of individual discussions with a lot of people about a lot of those kind of things. But I don't think we ever really make everybody happy in what we do. We just do it best we can and make the roads as good as possible for people to go across. The original thing on Susquehanna was there's 4 large buses going back and forth that route. We were trying to cut that down to 2 and use smaller buses for that too. And Joe just advised us that it doesn't even look like they're going to do that because there's about 8 children that live on that road, but there's, you know, 2 big buses that go through as a cutoff, and the problem is that there's children there, and it slows down the bus route for the school system. So we've had a lot of discussion. They try to be cooperative, but it doesn't sound like
Well,
at the end of the day we're getting much.
So where that
result.
came from, so if you can imagine, a small passenger car goes over the road and it beats up the gravel road. So one school bus pass over that same road is equal to about 12 or 1,500 passenger car trips over the road. So, and gravel roads on average lose about 2 inches a year alone in dust. So this year we did a couple things. We're putting fresh gravel down, and we started with Susquehanna for the first time in several years. And we also treated it with, we compacted it and treated it with calcium chloride so we can try and get some more mileage out of the gravel we do put down.
my question was just if the other 5 towns have a significant number of gravel roads, if the towns could come together and talk to the district and the transportation, the district, and you have to go through the district to get to the transportation company, but have a little bit more pressure to come up with an alternative to having the full buses going up and down the gravel roads. Because I know in the past, you know, my kids' bus had gotten stuck on some of the gravel roads in the spring, and they've, you know, missed, an hour or so in the morning because their bus is stuck on a gravel road. We don't live on the gravel road, but that's their bus route, you know. So it's been an ongoing problem for years, and just if there's any sort of pressure that we can have a conversation and move forward.
Mr. Chairman, if I could kind of respond a little bit. So, you know, to the school credit, me and Joe called up Dan Deedy and asked him to go out and look at the roads with us. And Dan Deedy came in, the facilities manager, I think his first name is Mark, came out with me and Joe, and we actually toured the roads and showed them what the issue was. They were kind of shocked at how bad the roads were, and they when they left, we felt very much like they wanted to do something. And they engaged the busing company, because then we got on the phone with the busing company as a group and talked about what our concerns were. So it was, to the school district's credit, they really tried to work with us. The problem is there's no really good solution, because they have to pick up those kids that are on those roads. So, you know, I'm not sure that there's any real great solution to it, but I can't say it wasn't from, I think they felt a lot of under pressure, but they also, given Dan and Mark's house, they were for trying to reduce the buses. They looked at it and said, the roads are bad, and they looked and said, should we even have school buses on Susquehanna, because the road was so bad. So, I don't know what we could do to change it, you know what I mean, because it's just the nature of where the kids live, I guess, is what I'd say.
I would suggest that they look and see how much it's costing to repair those buses.
Well,
Because of the
Wear and tear.
wear and tear on the buses.
I got the sense they put it back on us too. They wanted us to somehow limit.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
By ordinance.
Want us to.
Yeah,
Did they tell you that at the last discussion?
Well, that was what the superintendent implied.
Well, that was our threat to them, was that we would limit how many big trucks and cars or stuff would go on those roads. I don't remember them liking it, that was kind of
He
our.
didn't like it, but it was the only thing he would have,
Oh.
that,
We could talk about it some more. We've, truthfully, I think in one area that's been really good communication between us and the school system, where they were willing to talk to us, they looked at the road. So I can't say that they ignored us. They spent a lot of time trying to work it out with us.
so the takeaway is we're trying to make them better. But, you wanna go through some projects just quick?
Yeah.
Okay, there's this one here that says Mass DOT. That's real recent. Myself and the town administrator met with, some representatives from Mass DOT. They've got some funding for the 21 transportation bond bill, which they haven't had in a long time. But basically, what they want to fund is resurfacing of 68 and 56, with the exception of what we have being done under the tip. And they want to get it all done by June of 22.
Yeah, tell them the good news, we don't have to do anything, they're gonna do all the work themselves.
Yeah, it'll all be Mass Highway contractors. We may have to help them with some culvert work. That's about it.
Great news.
I know, if I may, I know there's been a lot of feedback from the Holden side of 68 that was repaved, and that the asphalt is, people don't like that, the work that was done there. I know the town doesn't have say if the state's doing it, and they're all on the bid list, I
Oh, we have
assume.
stay.
Do we? Okay,
Oh,
I
yeah.
just wanted to make sure that that we're aware of the complaints that residents have had for the roads that have been redone in Holden recently. I don't know who those contractors were, and I don't know what the cause of those problems are, but just mindful that whether it's the asphalt itself, whether it's the line striping, whether it's all of it, but,
Well, we're involved.
okay, thank you.
I believe Holden was sprayed, that was not laid down, asphalt laid down and packed.
It wasn't. It was, yeah, you're right. It was a surface
So
treatment.
are they talking about doing that on the Rutland side, spray, or?
Well, a couple quick things. I think the piece in Holden was done by the town of
The
Holden,
town did it. I
because they own the
forgot.
road just like we do.
Yes,
But the state came to us and asked if we would support this project. And they mentioned their current plan is to grind and overlay them. So that means they mill off 2 or 3 inches of asphalt and put new asphalt down. That's a different procedure.
yes, I know.
So I think it's gonna look similar to what it looks like now, except a little smoother. And we'll
And-
get another 15 years out of it.
We haven't had, what have we had on this particular one, only about 5 or 6 years now?
Closer to 20.
No.
Yep, they pulled the records because the state did it the last time.
It hasn't been done since we've moved to town.
Gary Kelleher just came on.
Just came on, and that's 12 years ago then.
Yep.
It was done.
But they're not just doing that, they're also doing 56.
In the meantime, you're gonna try to save some money so you can crack seal the roads.
I'll get into that next.
Thank you.
And some of those, if we can use some of those grindings to clean up some of the gravel parking lots and stuff too, right?
We can use the grind as well.
I'd like to see us to take advantage of that.
So the next cover sheet says Stantec.
Yeah.
All right, so Stantec, the town administrator got some money from the community compact grant, and we put it out for, we did a request for proposal, and we eventually hired Stantec. And what the request for proposal was to evaluate all town roads, come up with some pavement conditions and make some recommendations on how to proceed. They've just finished their evaluation, and this is like a memo on their preliminary work. And you can, I know the map didn't come through very well, but they evaluated everything. And they have a bunch of different rehabilitation processes that they have suggested, which may include some crack sealing, but also include some chip seal and some grind and overlay, and they're gonna help us get the most we can out of our money. But I would caution everybody here, there's some roads that are so far gone that those are capital investments that well exceed what we have in Chapter 90. And they'll have to be a bond issue. But we've made good progress. The folks from Stantec have agreed to come in and talk to this group and give a presentation. And there'll be a formal report. This is just the first step. But the field work is done. You have any questions about that?
I guess,
It's okay. You can read it. I have it.
See the roads.
if I may,
I can't find mine.
Yes.
I have,
It didn't
I
come
have the
through well,
color,
I'm
so
sorry.
you guys- I have a color.
But you got the color
Oh,
one?
excuse me.
Ooh, you guys wanna see the color? If I can, just by looking at this, if I may, it looks like a lot of the neighborhood roads are kind of ones that are in the yellow orange with marked as structural improvement. And I know we accept roads going as they come available, you know, they kind of go through planning board and then come to us and we recommend at town meeting or not. These, I think they're some of the older neighborhoods and the roads have been accepted for a while, but what can we do as we're looking at new roads coming forward to try to, is there anything that we can do?
I think our spec is pretty good.
Okay,
It's just historically, we haven't spent the money.
okay,
And what, a lot of the stuff in yellow is interim updates to get them to last longer.
okay. Cause I think the yellow just says like structural, it seems to be like a more, it's this structural improvement is what the yellow says, versus preventative maintenance or routine maintenance. So the low structural improvement is base rehabilitation, which I assume would be more significant based on just looking at the roads that's marked. It seems
So-
to be.
We'll get a formal report eventually. That email came last week, and I still have to meet with Mr. Scarpetti, so we'll formalize how that's presented, so it makes more sense.
Perhaps, Mr. Chairman, it might be a good idea when that formal report actually comes through, that Joe come in and talk a little bit about that, because I think it's a little premature to start looking at it in a detailed that way. But when the formal report comes in, we can ask the DPW director to come back and answer any questions about the
Well, you
formal
said
report.
Stantec wants to come in and talk.
They're gonna,
about it.
Stantec's
Oh,
gonna,
so they're gonna come in,
that's
Stantec
part,
is
we
of it,
budgeted
yeah?
that in the RFP.
But I also
But I
wonder-
guarantee you, we'll both have to talk.
Yeah, you're gonna
Right.
probably, right.
And I don't know, I mean, I know that this isn't really under planning board's purview, but they are also involved in sometimes the road acceptance and stuff going forward. So I wonder if it would be nice to invite
Oh, yeah.
them to participate, just so that they're hearing the same information that we're hearing, more on their side for going forward. If it seems like it's not, if it seems like our criteria is fine, and it's really just that after we accept roads, we're not very good at upkeeping them because we don't have the
Well, they have
funds.
the lifespan is finite, that's all.
So, I just wanna,
You can read that.
And we can get it to, their engineering consultant.
oh,
We can do that too.
thank you.
Time bond?
Yeah.
This is the information for the sidewalk for Maple Ave to go from Maine to Rutland Heights, the hospital there, the property. This is the result of the bids. It went out for public bid for pre-approved Mass Highway contractors. I believe the low is $595, $898, $42, and that's, we've recommended awarding, right?
Are you familiar with that company?
No, but they would have gone through extensive approvals from the state. They could,
Do you know
So-
where they're out of?
I wanna say Brighton. We don't have a schedule yet, but we expect to have it done, probably by June of next year. And I brought a full set of drawings for you folks to have. So you can look at those if you'd like.
Is there any way, if I may, to get this information up on the website? I know it's hard to get the plans up, but I know a lot of residents have been really advocating strongly for this for years. And so just to get it available for folks that wanna see it, obviously they can come into the office or whatever and see the actual plans, but just to be able to,
Well, we've got it in a PDF. We can put it on the website.
if you don't mind, I mean,
And you folks can look at it now if you want. I've got all the drawings.
yeah.
The wall's coming down.
I thought it was gonna be lower, right?
Right to, yeah, it'll come down to street level and there'll be a new retaining wall put in, stairs. There's some better crosswalks, there's some bicycles,
Yeah.
striping. It's involved,
Yeah.
but I think it's a good project.
I know it's much wanted by a lot of people, the residents around that loop as well as other townspeople that walk that
Mhm.
route. And it's for the schools too, because there's a lot of students that walk.
It's in poor shape, it needs to be done. The next one is CHA. You don't have to get too much into this. This is the consulting engineer managing Route 56, the TIP project. You want to look at Exhibit B, which is the current schedule. Tells you roughly where we're at.
So can I, just for the public, what we're looking at says the summer of 2022 is project ready for construction advertisement. So we're still out for shovel ready, like shovels in ground for a while. I've had some questions as to when it was actually
Yeah, the
gonna
100%
start.
design has been approved. We're waiting for some final comments, but it's on the move. And we'll start acquiring property after the town meeting.
Yeah.
And acquiring easements, so it's moving. We also, I forgot to mention it earlier, and I brought a set of drawings in case anybody has any questions. The water mains going in Palmagussit, that started today. So that has to be done in advance of this work, and they started that today, so it's on the move.
Yeah. If I may, is there plans to close it at all? Because I remember when the rail trail tunnel was done, Palmagussit was closed, and there was you had to basically go around either over Britnell or out down to 68 and around. There's no current plans to close at all, or will it?
Oh, I'm
or is
sure
it
there'll be
unknown?
some closure, so
Okay.
we're not there yet, I
Okay.
can't. Definitely, because the culvert that goes in at Molten Mill Pond is like 9 feet by 10 feet. It's a big box culvert. It's gotta be dropped in place with a crane. I don't see any way around.
Okay. So we would most likely be looking at some sort of road closures for,
Yeah,
but we're not there yet. Okay.
we're not there yet,
had,
but you should take note, we have a lot going on. So we've got, if the state comes through with what they said, you've got grind and overlay projects on 56 from the Paxton Town line to Maine. You've got all of 68, and then you've got 56 from 68 up to Richards, and they want all that work done by June of '22. Plus we have the sidewalk job going in, plus we have Palmagussit all cut up for the water main. We have a lot going on.
well, and,
Folks will get frustrated, there's just no way around that.
and that was going to be my next kind of question. Is there's going to be a lot of construction, so a lot of the alternative routes are still going to be slower, even though they're slow to be. They're an alternate route. They're slow anyway, but they're going to probably be even slower because there's work and construction.
In a perfect world, we probably wouldn't let the state get started on those other roads right away, but that's their schedule. And we wanna take advantage of that. I mean, we've been working on the 56 planning for years, 5 years anyways. The Palmagussit water main's been 1.5 years in development. The sidewalk's been 3 years. So we've been, that's almost a perfect storm of stuff.
Yeah.
I wish you could push the state off maybe 6 or 8 months, but that's their schedule.
Yeah.
So we'll have a lot going on.
We'll have to be mindful for the 300th and 4th of July and everything too. Any sort
300.
of.
Right, and they'll be all redirected on those dirt roads.
At 45 miles an hour.
No, by the way, they'll be all redirected on those traditional dirt roads.
Traditional.
Thanks, Joe. I know it's
And
a
that's
lot
all I
of-
got.
It's a lot that needs to be done, so it's good that it's happening, so.
So I'll leave the plans if you wanna look at them for the sidewalk and the water.
Anybody have any other questions or anything for Joe?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And can you extend our thanks to all of DPW because, like I said, looking at the org chart, it's amazing to me what they're doing with the amount of work that there is. So I appreciate.
Well, thank you. We have some great people who all really stepped up.
So thank you. Please extend my thanks.
Hang for 2 seconds, Jeff. Want me to do my report?
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to hang for, because I'm gonna discuss
Oh,
a
yeah.
little bit of the Joe stuff. So as you listen to the DPW director, you get her talk about, me and him, we're working on this. I must say that of all my department heads, I spend more time with Joe Buckley than any other department head we did because there is so much going on in town. And And I think I feel good about the progress that we're making, a whole host of areas, and particularly I'm really happy about the sewer issue, and Senator Goby and Kim Ferguson have been working with us. At least we got started to the money today, which is a really, really good thing. And I believe we'll get all the money that's owed to us as a reimbursement over time, so I think that is going to be a good thing. And frankly, the reduced cost long-term to residents, I think, is also beneficial, but that's required a lot of work by a lot of different people. And it's all recognized that we've been overcharged, so really the only issue is how we get the money back at this point, which is a good news. Joe and I were out today. One of the things you might have noticed is the Christmas tree out in the front of the building. The church there is on its last legs. It looks like it's dying. Kudos to Bonnie Bessie, who volunteered to donate like a 9-foot tree to the town. A little bit small for what we're looking for. So me and Joe today were at Scott Davis's house looking at trees, and Scott explained to us that this is the wrong time of year to plant a tree. If you wanted to dig up a tree and put a tree in, that this is not the right time, that we would be better off waiting till the spring. And he said he would donate a tree, and we looked at a variety of ones on his property that seemed to fit the bill for what we need. We are going to have to hopefully get a donation or try to get some company that can come in. There's a specific type of piece of equipment that digs
Tree
out the
spade.
tree. What's it called?
Tree spade.
Tree spade that we're going to have to look at, and that could cost up to $1,700 or something. But we'll see what we can do. But we want to replace that tree because it's just failing. I mean, we hope it comes back to life, but we expect that it's going to die further, and we're not going to be able to move forward. The chairman asked me, we'll work with the church when the time comes to make that all occur. We did look at, we were looking at some sewer issues as well. Joe was mostly looking at some more sewer issues as we went out there. It seems okay. Kudos to Dick, and I know he was out mowing a lot of the property at the Heights property that I know that Mike Sullivan had asked me about, so thank you for going out there and getting that work done for us. We are in the process, and Joe, that's all I wanted you to be here for, so if you want to go, I know you
Just on the tree thing though, it's my understanding that in the fall is a good time because the tree becomes dormant, and if you actually plant them in the fall, then it actually starts right up in the spring. So I actually thought that planting in the fall was the more preferable time of
Well,
year.
Scott told us, Scott is a Christmas tree farmer, so we assume he knows pretty much. He explained to us that this was not the good time of year, that it would be better in the spring, and that Bonnie Bessie's husband, who is very good at knowing how to deal with these trees, should be part of this project because he could help guide us as to how to make the roots settle and stuff into it. And he has a piece of equipment, but it's too small for what we need. But he suggested that he would be a key guy to kind of work us through to make sure the tree lives. So me and Joe were not the experts on that. But
Now you're not going to plant it in the same location again, exactly, right? You're going to.
No.
Put it on the common.
Move
Yeah,
it,
But yeah, you
just
don't
not
want
in
it
the
to
same
be.
location.
Right.
You gotta move it.
Well, we can talk about that location once we go through.
They're still gonna light the existing tree.
Well, no, I
This
know,
year
but,
we're gonna
but
do
if
it.
there's an issue there, you don't want to plant a tree where you've had a tree die. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
sure.
not going to be. You're going to have more problems probably going forward.
Nutrients all pulled up probably.
Right.
So things have worked really well, and I want to compliment Joe for a lot of things that he's been working on, and I feel good about it. We had, as he said, we had a lot of conversation with the state on the various roads, and we're very pleased that they were going to take care of all that themselves. Senator Goby explained to me that there's going to be future rounds of ARPA funding, our ARPA funding in the future, so we may be trying to get more money in the future. I admit I was really disappointed. I was hoping to get some money for those parking lots. So that was really disappointing, but it's not our last chance, so we'll continue working with
Did you
it.
say that it was? Did they didn't feel it was an eligible purpose?
No, I
or
actually asked that today. I thought, because I was worried it would be ineligible, so I asked her today, and I emailed back to her, and she says, no, she does believe it's eligible, and she did put an amendment onto, I guess, the bill, and it didn't get approved, but she did feel it was eligible.
So it's something we could possibly resubmit?
Yeah, she said that in future rounds, that's what I'm getting at, so there'll be other rounds, so we're gonna continue to look at that. As you know, there's, I've been looking for an IT grant funding for cameras and computer equipment for the school system for the entrances. I talked to them, and they're gonna announce those grants around Thanksgiving time, so that's when, I've been kinda eager, this is one of, frankly, one of the more grants I'm excited about, because I like the purpose of it. But we should learn something around Thanksgiving if we're gonna have a shot for that grant or not, if we're gonna get that grant or not, so I think that was pretty good news. As you know, Damien in our town clerk's office is going to be a town clerk in another town. We really appreciate the service she had to the town and wish her the best of luck to her job. That's created an opening To the town clerk's credit, she's been working with me. We did 2 of 3 interviews for the top 3 candidates. We did 2 of them today, we're doing 1 more tomorrow, and we should be selecting a new assistant town clerk shortly for that position. The town clerk being elected official, I'm not sure she had to involve me as much, but we followed the exact same hiring process we do for everybody else, so kudos for that process, I think it went well.
I don't know if Anita's on for that purpose.
Well, she's on, I think, mostly for Bond Road, which we'll
Okay.
talk about later. I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to talk about.
What about Rutland Heights?
Rutland Heights is still moving forward. The engineering company and discussions I've had, I attended the last RDIC meeting. They brought on a new engineering company. The chairman of the RDIC was very complimentary towards the new engineering company. Said that they're extremely detailed and feels really good about the progress that this company's doing. Mike has been very engaged with them about their plans. They're actually gonna give him, I wanna say mid-December, a more formal project plan as for timelines. So Mike is expecting some type of more formal timeline. I wanna say it's mid-December is when he's talking
Mike's
about.
actually on, I don't know if he has any comment.
Is Mike on?
Yeah.
Mike, what was the timeline for the project plan for the Heights property?
I have a meeting tomorrow that will clarify this, but I'm expecting in December, we should have, a realistic plan. By that I mean a drawing of the site, that they then will put a timeline together, from the standpoint of permitting and all of the things associated with the project. So I guess what I'm telling you is I'll be able to, and Lyndon and I had this discussion last week. I think in sometime in mid-December, I'll be able to pinpoint that much more accurately than I can right now. As you said, they contracted a new engineering company, so they're really, what they're having to do is take all of the work that was done by the previous engineering company, confirm or discredit it. Discredit's not the right word, but decide that it needs some additional work. So they're kind of doing work all over again that's already been done, and so far it's been the work that was done previously has been pretty accurate. So I'm expecting tomorrow I'll know more. I suggested to Lyndon that perhaps your mid-December meeting or end of December meeting, I'd be able to really nail it down for you.
Also, just so you know, the gates at the Heights property are all gonna be open going forward for a while, so that they can go on and do work and stuff on the site. Joe today called the police chief and talked to him about it, and there's gonna be extra monitoring by the police department of that property to make sure kids aren't hanging up there doing anything bad. So the RDIC did vote to allow those gates to be open, and everybody's aware, and we're gonna keep an eye on that to make sure everything's okay. We're still preparing and getting our final documents ready for town meeting. I wanna encourage anyone who's watching tonight that the town meeting is this Thursday on the 18th at 6 o'clock at Glenwood School. So please come, we really wanna have a good showing for that. And I think that, Mr. Chairman, covers the major thing I wanted to talk about tonight.
Okay. Does anybody have anything specific for Ron? Or?
Can I just ask for clarification for the IT grant for the school security stuff? That was, a grant was already submitted and we're waiting to hear funding?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought, but then I
About
wasn't,
115 grand or 10 grand, I think, is what I applied for.
and that was only for the school
For the
buildings? or did
three
that-
schools.
Okay, I wasn't sure, cause I know it's gone back and forth depending on the grants, whether we include the town buildings also,
No,
or.
this is just schools. It
Okay.
was originated from the middle school,
Okay,
who really
yeah.
made this a big issue, the principal of middle school. Mike Moriarty had some plans already in the past, they've been talking about them. We basically took those plans, brought it into a cost estimate, sent those plans to the state along with our application. So they have really good details about what we're trying to do, but it will take care of all 3 schools.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mike.
Mike Sullivan here. I was unable to log on, and shame on me, early. I had some sort of technical issue. I've got a 2 or 3 minute thought I'd like to share with the board that I should have done in open meeting. If there's a way to do that, I'd appreciate it. If there isn't, I understand.
Does anybody have any objections?
I think that's right when we were having
Yeah.
the Zoom issue,
Okay.
so.
No, that, okay, go ahead, Mike.
Well, my discussion is centered on, I went to the ZBA meeting last week on the proposed cell tower adjacent to the school. And I don't specifically want to talk about whether the cell tower should or shouldn't go there, but I have a couple of concerns that I hope I've raised with the town administrator, with the ZBA, and unfortunately, as recently as today, with DPW superintendent.
Now, Mike, you're speaking on behalf as a resident, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, just want to clarify.
If I go beyond that, I'll let you know.
No, I just want to make sure that we
Yeah,
know.
no, I understand. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I perhaps should have mentioned that. So as a taxpayer, the original proposal for the access to the site was off of, someone help me with the road, Phillips Road? I think it's Phillips Road.
Correct.
And then that was the original submission, which was a road that, a road, I'm calling it a road, it's a driveway, that was somewhere in the magnitude of 1,000 feet long, 800 feet long. The current access that apparently the select board has agreed to, is somewhere in the magnitude of 120 or 130 feet long. And I sat there and I said to myself, you know, to allow, and what I understand, and I don't want to step out of bounds, so I'll make this statement in the form of a question. What is the town getting in return for allowing them access off of what is not a road, it's a driveway?
Yeah.
So that's question-
Ron did address this earlier for one of the residents, but you want to just recap
So-
Ron on the position.
So Mike, the road right now, although it's not an approved public road, is open to the public and the public transport's on that road. So anybody has a right to access that road. The only agreement, and me and you had talked about this, and I really appreciate the fact that Mike came to me and discussed this issue with me, is we're not really, the road, I think they have access to already. The issue for the town is, and the issue that we've been asked to consider, and me and you have discussed this, is the issue of the easement to put electricity across the road. That really is what was brought to my attention, what I brought forward to the Board of Selectmen. So the distance traveled in the road, you're correct, I guess, in your assessment that it's gonna be a lot cheaper for them to access their property off the what you call the drive, or what we call the driveway. It is gonna be cheaper for them to access that. The discussion, as you know, Mike, because me and you have had it, is, the town has not really looked at the project or take any position on the project as a whole, just at what we believe the value of the easement would be. And me and Joe suggested to the Board of Selectmen that the value, if we could do a trade for the, I guess I'm gonna call it again, for lack of a better term, the road layout or a road study, because we eventually would like to make that a public road, we think about $20,000, and we thought that was an appropriate value for the easement. I understand you can make the case to the board why you think the value is different, and because there's a different value to how they, it's obviously a clear difference in cost to the company.
Right, well, why don't you
putting up
allow
the
me
road.
to
You
do
can
that?
explain that if you want.
Yeah, I guess to the select board and to the general public, I've gotten some dark shot estimates of the cost to build a road of 1,000 feet that has to cross a wetland of somewhere in the magnitude of $125,000 to $150,000. Now, I've also gotten similar estimates to build the existing road that they're going to build of somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. So, as someone who goes in front of the finance committee and struggles to get enough money to pay for my secretarial services, our secretarial services, and can get not a penny beyond that, it's very troubling to me to listen to our town fathers who have a fiduciary responsibility to the town, to sit and listen to the fact that the developer is going to pocket, you pick the number, let's just use $100,000 to be very conservative. They're going to pocket $100,000 and we're going to get 20. And I just think that is absolutely ridiculous. Number one, that's point number one. Point number two is, by allowing them, and now I'm putting my ex-planning board member hat on, which is 20 years old. So I'll succumb to anybody else there. I think I heard a planning board member there. There are certain regulations about access off of quote unquote driveways, shared driveways. So what you folks are doing, I believe, is allowing a shared driveway off of an existing driveway because that is not a roadway. And what troubles me is, are you opening a can of worms? And I have no idea of the ownership of that land, but let me put a hypothetical together for you that someone owns, whatever. That road has to be a couple thousand, probably 3,000 feet long. There are other people who own frontage on that roadway, and they now come to you and say, you know what, I want to build 5 houses along that roadway, and I want driveway access off of your driveway. You are going to create some heartburn for the planning board that's going to be impossible for them to deal with. So I'm not here to debate either of these points. I'm trying to hopefully prevent you, the Board of Selectmen, from making a decision that you may regret, and it's only because of, and I use this term literally, because of ignorance of the other things that are going on around it. So that's pretty much all I have to say on the subject, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. I don't consider myself an expert on any of these things, but just based on my past experience, I see potential problems coming. Now, I will speak personally. I'm not speaking for my board, but I'll speak as a member of the RDIC. I have a separate concern over the fact that the balloon test that was done, there was, at least they did not present any visual evidence that photographic evidence that they showed at the ZBA meeting from the site, because there's no question in my mind that you could see it from there. And I guess the second part of my concern is, you know what, I'm going to hold that thought. I'd rather not address that quite yet. So with that, I'll answer any questions you have. If there are none, I ask you as a taxpayer to help me pay my bills, and as a member of the RDIC to help me be able to fund our department better than we're able to, our commission better than we able are to right now.
Tamika has a
$100,000.
So I just wanted to share that it was discussed at the end of the hearing last week that they were going to conduct another balloon test, and I'm currently working with their attorney now, and the board has put together a list of additional locations that they want photos taken from, and the Rutland Heights property, specifically at the top of the hill, has been included in that. And it's not set in stone, but we're looking at a tentative date of December 4th for the balloon test. So when that happens and we've confirmed it, I'm gonna have information, that will go out to the public. But just so you know, Mike, that the Heights is definitely on the list for this next time around.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I don't wanna get into a long debate there, but I do wanna make one clear kind of point, right? So, and again, I wanna credit Mike for talking to me all about this, and we have sort of a difference of opinion. And really, at the end of the day, it's up to the board and other people than either me or Mike to come to the decision. But we are not, what the developer makes on the property is really not something that I, as a town administrator, gets involved with how he makes his money. The approach to us is he came to us asking for an easement, and only an easement, not a roadway, not any of that stuff, just an easement. I look at it is what's the value of that easement itself, is the way I've approached that. Mike is absolutely right, as I understand it, that the cost of them putting in the road from the Heights, what we refer to as a driveway versus the other way, is going to save them a ton of money. That could be very well true. I'm not comfortable, and again, other people can make their own conclusions, that we can charge them above the cost of the value of the easement. That's the way I look at it. Mike believes that this company is saving hundreds of thousands or $150,000. We should get some share of that savings for allowing that easement that would make it cheaper for them to go forward. I understand Mike's point. I just don't disagree with the philosophy of that, but Mike's correct in the point that he's making in terms of the savings to the developer. That, you know, and I wanna make it really clear for the record, as I did early on, the town is taking no position on the development of that cell tower, period. The town's not taking a position for or against anything. The only issue that I brought forward to the Board of Selectmen, the only issue under consideration is if this cell tower does get approved, that there's a question of the easement that will be before the Board of Selectmen and what the value of that easement is. I just want the public to be very clear. I don't want anyone, I made this point to the town planner, please bring it back to the zoning board of appeals that the town is not taking any position on this development, period. That's not the town's intent.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I
It's
may,
not a road.
Ron, thanks for your comments,
Not
but
from our property, no, it's not. None of it's our property except the easement, that's all,
An easement, not a road,
not
yeah.
a road.
Get that, Mike? It's not a road.
Well, the
I
developer-
never said it was a road, it's a driveway, but to
No,
me.
it's not, it's not a road going into the tower. It's an easement for
I
power
didn't
to
say it was
pass
a road.
over,
What I-
pass over.
what I-
It's not a road.
I didn't say it was a road,
Yes,
it's a
you did.
driveway. Okay, fine, I agree, it's a driveway. But as a driveway, coming off a driveway, you now are presenting a potential issue to the planning board. Now, I'm not gonna debate that, you take that up with the planning board, I'm just pointing it out to you, that you cannot have in our current regulations, you can't have an existing driveway and then just put a bunch of driveways off it, which is what you're potentially open the can of worms to do. But back to the town administrator's point, to me, it's more a fair market value issue. I mean, you can say that the easement is only worth $20,000. The easement is worth what they're willing to pay for it and what their potential savings is. Why should the developer realize, and I'm gonna use $100,000 as a round number. Why should they realize $100,000 profit because the town is nice enough to allow them an easement? When, if you went back to them and said, you know what, we've now reconsidered this, and instead of $20,000, your cost for that other road, I'm just gonna throw numbers out, is $150,000, your cost for this new road is $20,000, that's a net savings of $130,000. We think that our easement is worth $100,000 now. Do you think they're gonna say no to a $30,000 savings? Of course they're not. And Ron, I'm gonna say this to you again. You were part of the negotiating of the Heights project.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
they
well,
went from 88 units to 142, we said, okay, your saturation and your per cost is less than by that number. And that was part of the reason we went from $750,000 to $1.6 million.
No, Mike, I agree with you, you're correct, I was part of that, but I look at that completely different. We were selling
I don't
a
know
piece
how
of,
you can look at it
we
different,
were
but
selling
again,
a piece
Mr.
of
Chairman,
prop-
I'm not here to debate with
No,
Ron, he and I
okay.
disagree on this.
Let's move
I
on.
I
Through the
just
chair,
believe
can
I'm
we
being
move on?
responsible taxpayer by
Right.
pointing out to the Board of Selectmen that I believe the town is making an irresponsible fiscal decision if
Right.
they proceed down the path they are.
No, we appreciate that, Mike, and we got that from your previous comments, and this was discussed quite a bit earlier this evening, so I think.
Okay, I apologize,
That's
I was
okay.
trying to hold
No,
on.
no, I understand that, but I just want to give you an opportunity to, speak.
I appreciate it,
All right, so.
thank you, Mike.
thank you.
Thanks. Does anybody have anything else for Ron? All right. The town administrator formal annual review, so we needed all the comments to be in, we wanted them in by tonight, but, so we'll do, it's all right. But, Carol and I will be working on accumulating the responses. I do want to get responses to Ron as well, and then we will have the actual review at in 2 weeks at the next meeting.
We
The
got
one
a
thing
copy,
that,
right, of the stuff I asked?
yes, we did, yes, I did see the email, thank you. And Ron did bring up the fact that we need to do the fire chief's review, because he reports to the board, and although he works directly with him, so there was discussion that we should have board members participate in the review. I talked to Carol about it, about her and I doing it, but Lee, are you interested in participating in that? We don't, I want it to be only 2 members, so it doesn't have to be a meeting and stuff like that. Are you interested?
I mean, I'm fine not doing it if you need a person to do it.
No, I just don't wanna exclude you, cause I know Carol and I are gonna do the review,
Yeah.
cumulative review for Ron, and I didn't wanna exclude you or Skip if you're interested in it. Be more than happy to switch either you out for Carol or I, just if you're interested. I don't wanna.
Yeah, I mean, I think schedule-wise and everything, I don't necessarily feel that I need to be involved, but,
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, and obviously,
Do you wanna-
if you and
if I
Skip
do-
have any comments regarding it too, you know. that
yeah,
want
if
us
you don't
to-
mind, I can just send you some,
Yeah, just so that, yeah, when we have
Comments,
when
but-
we meet with Ron and Seth, we'll be able to include anybody's comments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Are you guys
No,
fine with that?
I'm
So
good
you're
with
fine
that.
with Carol
I'm
and
good
I
with that.
sitting in with Ron and doing
Yeah.
that? Okay.
So to that end, and I'm happy with it, most of my department head reviews are completed. There's a couple that I couldn't do. One is the town clerk as an elected official. One is the library director who works for a board and not directly for me. And the other one was the fire chief. The fire chief is within your power to do so. Me and the chairman talked about having that process. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it, and I'll work with you guys to set that up.
Okay.
So, you did the police chief?
The chief is done.
You didn't allow us to put any input into it?
I did all my department heads, so the police chief, I think, works directly for me, where the fire chief does not.
Yeah, but they're exposed people, the fire chief, the police chief. Never mind,
Yeah, I mean,
forget
you
it,
know,
no,
all of my
forget it.
department heads are exposed, I think, to you guys. but-
I mean, did the board in the past review the police chief?
They haven't done a review for
Yeah,
years.
we had.
I would-
When Hapakowski was on, we did,
that
Was that
was
what-
before I was
we-
on.
Yep.
uh-huh.
I've only been on since.
Then we
I've
had
been
it
on.
had an administrator at the time?
Yep.
I mean, I do, like, I know, like, they do report to Ron, he's been doing the reviews. And I know that Seth reports directly to us, and that's why we need to do the review. But, I mean, and the same with like Joe's review, we weren't involved with Joe's review at all as well. Did you do that in the past as well, the DPW director?
Yep.
Yeah, all I can say to you is there hasn't been reviews done since Margaret's been here. So a lot of them, it was interesting, they talked to move
Well, I
to
mean, that was
first
my concern, and I
reviews.
appreciate you got them done, because you know, I wanted you to do the goals and
Yeah.
expectations, and I wanted you to do the reviews, so I'm glad that's getting done. I don't mean, does this board have any other opinion as far as its involvement?
I mean, I don't necessarily feel that we as a board need to do the reviews ourselves, but to provide feedback or
Yeah,
comments,
comment,
because
yes.
we, I think as the elected officials, sometimes hear, you know, comments or whatever just from residents that
Yeah.
might not make it, and so it's not necessarily, I think it's just another layer of consideration, you
Mhm.
know, like I've heard, you know, this or this has been an ongoing concern, or this has been something that's been doing really awesome,
Yeah.
you know, and so,
So I would say this, if any of you wanna make comments, even though the reviews are done with a lot of them, and I reviewed them with the department, if you guys wanna make comments about any particular department and send them to me, I will incorporate it in a review and talk to the department heads about that. Cause I think, truthfully, I think most of what you're gonna say is positive stuff, so I think they'd probably appreciate it. But if you wanna send that in, I will add it to the review and have that discussion with them as well.
I mean, that goes back to why I wanted input from you and Skip for
Right.
Seth's, because I
Right.
wanted to make sure everybody had, you know, if they had input they wanted
Right.
included in it, that would be included.
and I think as it comes to us for the contract renewals and
Mhm.
negotiations and everything, it's helpful for us to see the reviews, also like, or I don't know if we necessarily need to see the formal document, but at least have that communication as like, these are the department heads' goals and objectives for the upcoming year, just as, you
Right.
know, we try to touch base on our goals and objectives every meeting and everything, just so that,
So if I could just add a comment to that, so as part of the goal, as part of the review process, I've added in their goals and objectives into the review process. I also told all of them though that I wasn't gonna count heavily on those this year because they just happened a few months ago, so they didn't have a full year review. So next year I said, be prepared, next year those goals and objectives that you provided will have a much bigger impact to your review than they did this year. But, so they are, each of the goals and objectives that they outlined in my meeting with them is in their actual evaluation.
yeah. And I know, I know it's hard also because a lot of goals and objectives are somehow, whether directly or indirectly, tied to the budget. And depending on what happens with their budgets, it's hard for them to sometimes exceed their goals and objectives if they don't have the funding, either personnel, staffing, or funding for whatever. And so I think it's hard to say you can't have goals and objectives that are tied to budgetary issues, because for some departments they would have essentially nothing, but
Right.
then for others it's hard to not weigh that. So I just want to make sure that it's a fair and equitable.
Well, truthfully, that would be one of the things that I would be concerned about, selectmen. I kind of feel like either you be involved in all of them or none of them, because you don't want to have scattered comments for different departments. I'm trying to keep the process consistent among all departments, so they're all evaluated the same way. So it would be hard to have kind of a scattershot. Now, if you guys want to add some positive comments, I don't mind going back and adding them. But I really want to make sure that there's a consistent process for each evaluation.
Right, and I mean, I understand as the kind of chief of staff that's
Yeah.
one of your roles, but I also think that it's a little bit of a gray area, because we haven't done it in the past, and I think we should be doing it, but when we're the ones that are ultimately deciding on the contracts and the negotiations and everything, also, we want to be able to have some sort of input as far as, you know, what we as elected officials are hearing as a priority for town, and maybe we have a conversation with you before you have
Well, I
reviews
think
with.
I would agree to you that during the time of that negotiated contract, you should ask me about those employees and how they did in the review as part of our executive session discussions as to the negotiations of that contract. I'd be happy to share the overall general nature of what my issues are with that employer, or non-issues, and I think they're great, you know? So I'll give you an example of that. The contract that's coming up very shortly, it's gotta be, the communications director's contract is coming up. So if you were to ask me during that process, kind of give me your general feeling about that, I'd be happy to share the general emphasis of what I put in that report.
Well, this sparked a lot of conversation, because in the last renewal, that was my question, and you
Well,
really
that's what you said.
hadn't worked that long, is that you hadn't worked with them that long, but I wanted to know, you know, how they're performing, and there was no review, so I made a point that it's important that we want to have a review and know this person, we're gonna sign a contract with somebody and have no, know how they're performing. So yeah, that kind of drove a lot of this formal review part,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like I said, getting input on sets from you guys would be great, and, providing any input on any of the departments that, that people want to make sure is included in reviews is
Yeah.
appropriate too.
I will say this, in a general sense, my reviews have been pretty good. I really feel good about the team we have. So I feel in general the reviews have been pretty good, because we really do have a pretty good team. We have a lot of seasoned department heads here that have a pretty good skill set. And there's concerns I have, and I'm sharing those concerns with the individual department heads, but overall, I think it's a pretty good team.
So, all right, are we good on?
Yeah,
on
and I'll
review?
get you my stuff. I know
Yeah.
I'm slacking.
That's okay. All right, next on new business is discussion on the town charter special article.
So, through you, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
So I asked the chairman about this, because obviously the money for moving forward with the town charter was put into a town meeting and approved by the voters of the town. And we had a discussion some time ago at a board of selectmen level with some different members, and O'Carroll wasn't here at the time, about this. And I wanted we've gotta make a decision, either we wanna go forward with this, or maybe we take the money out and move it for some other purpose. I think the original cost was $22,000, and I got him to do it for 20 grand. Myself and the chairman had a lot of discussion about this. There's a lot of towns, mid-size, towns our size, that are going to a charter, but there's quite a few that don't either have a charter. The benefit of a charter overall usually is that it sets up a standard process that everybody understands. Right now, we kind of live off of bylaws and special acts of the state legislature and a whole group of different things that give different people powers throughout the town. But a charter, what it does is it wraps all that together in sort of a bow and makes it more organized and sets up a structure of government. A lot of people think it's a good thing, but in some smaller towns, they don't have charters. So the question I was really kind of asking the chair is, what do you want to do here? I know that at the last meeting, it didn't take off in a great way. I brought the Collins Center in. They answered a lot of questions, but the board at that time decided to take no action. So if we're not gonna take action, do we wanna transfer the money, or does this board think we should consider having Collins Center do the study, come out and recommend a charter, and then truthfully, at that point, it's up to the board of selectmen and town meeting if they wanna move forward with it or not, but the money's
I
there.
thought this actually had to go on a ballot. not town meeting.
What, I actually think it does both. I think if I gotta remember check, but I thought it did
I'm
both.
pretty sure it has to be a
Yeah,
ballot.
I think it does both, but I'd have to double check with it. But a charter is the kind of question that might be done on a ballot, you're right.
So I was one, if I may, I was one that had kind of pushed for putting together the charter committee and everything, because when we were working with, hiring Margaret's replacement, a lot of the feedback that we got from the search firm and everything was, one of the big things was a lot of the candidates were interested if there was bylaw or charter or anything. At the time, there was nothing. And so it seems like the push, not the push, but the desire, the strong desire among, you know, the more experienced town administrators were for a charter. And so I was pushing to have an outside company do the guide us through the process, and really, my understanding was it was a very involved with the town, weigh in at the, I was thinking the committee side versus the elected or appointed board, because then it goes through town meeting and it goes, I think, to the ballot and everything also. So there's a lot more opportunity for public weigh-in. And at that time, I was under the impression that the bylaw subcommittee would kind of be working on rehashing the bylaws, but not creating a whole town administrator bylaw. So that was my impression and push for doing this, was that it was that this was the priority for town administrator level government, local government structure. So that's where it kind of started and my push was coming from. I still think it holds a lot of value, and it went to town meeting and, residents approved. I think it was a overwhelming, if it wasn't a unanimous vote, it was an overwhelming positive vote. So it wasn't something at the time that was contentious or anything. I understand that there were a lot of questions when it came before us in the spring, or in the fall, or last winter, or whatever. And I wholly agree that there needs to be a lot of town resident support and input, and that's kind of why I was pushing for that process, that it would be an appointed board or committee that then would be going before, getting town input and then going before town meeting, and I think also to the ballot. So that was my push. So I still kind of am of the mindset, and then just hearing feedback from, I was involved in the pre-screening of the most recent set of town administrator candidates and everything, and just hearing a lot of feedback. There were a lot of questions, what's the structure and everything. So I don't necessarily think that it's still an unwarranted, or as the town is continuing to grow and we're relying more and more on a town administrator position. It's different than I think when earlier in the years when the town was smaller, it was a 5-member, 3 or 5-member board only with no administrator. So that's my push.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could just comment. So, first of all, thank you. I'll only say that as a town administrator, when I came and looked at a position in Rutland, one of the things we all do when we're applying for positions is look at, to see if there's a town charter or bylaws or everything, because we want a clear understanding of what the job is and what our powers are, what Board of Selectmen's powers are, all that. So it's a big factor that you have when you try to figure it out, because I gotta be honest with you, even today, sometimes I struggle out, like, what's my authority as a town administrator in this town, because it's not real clear in a lot of cases what I can do, what I can't do. So I've been kind of bringing everything to the Board of Selectmen because I don't wanna guess. But it is make you feel a little uncomfortable, as to who does what sometimes. And if you want to try to investigate, you got to go to see if there was any state special acts for your town, or is there a bylaw in place. It's just not a clear understanding of how the government runs, and that's what a charter gives you for what it's worth. So I think it is something, and frankly, I'm not going to be here forever, that would help you in the future hirings of town administrators, that they know what they're getting into and they have a clear understanding, and you have a clear understanding of whose role is to do what,
No, I mean, I've been aware that that's something that town administrators and managers look at. I mean, I kind of go back and forth on this. I mean, I definitely see it when it's needed if you have a town manager, because it's just more of a. I looked at Holden's it's pretty detailed. They have a town manager. I looked at Hubbardston's, theirs is a lot less detailed. They have a town administrator. I don't think any of the others within the Wachusett district have charters. I don't think any, like Sterling, Princeton, I don't think any of them have charters. I think it's only Holden, from what I could see.
Holden's a manager, so.
No, I know, but
Right,
charters.
Right, no,
But-
I know,
right.
yeah.
And Holden's is a manager and has a charter.
Right,
Hubbardston has a charter, but like I
Yeah.
said, it was not quite as detailed. It was a little.
and they're a little bit of a smaller community than we are. You know, I kind of view us in that in between Holden, a manager size, and a Hubbardston administrator size. And so I was looking more for, and I wanted to work with, I was also pushing to work with a organization, whether it's a Collins, to guide us so that it was done kind of thoughtfully and without all the special interests, and just kind of really look at it holistically from the town level, what it is, and not specific to a person or a specific group, or, you know, because town administrators change, select board makeups change, and everything. So that's kind of was my push to work with a consulting company
Right.
to guide the process.
See, and that's where I was a little concerned, because there's a big difference between, like I said, a Hubbardston and
Yeah.
a Holden, and where we're gonna fit in. I mean, I agree that we presented it and the residents voted on it, so I'm big on if they voted to spend the money, I have a hard time pulling it out unless there's a specific justification.
Yeah.
But I also think that, I mean, we originally went to a 5-person board because we didn't have a town administrator, and then we got a town administrator, and as we grow and grow, I mean, do we need to have a 5-person select board if we're not gonna be as involved in the town management? I mean, it is a lesser role,
Right.
you know, through a charter. So I kind of go back and forth a little bit about it. Like I said, the big thing is that the townspeople voted to do it. So I have a problem pulling the money,
Right.
but I'm still a little concerned exactly how the charter is going to come out.
Yeah.
And we won't know that until we see what they present us.
Right, it's kind of one of those, what comes first, the chicken, you know, are you putting the cart before the horse or the chicken and the egg
Right.
kind of process? Like, I think, and I feel strongly that the town have as much input as possible, and that it's an opportunity for the town to provide that input. I mean, we know that the town is only going to continue to grow, so,
Especially now that we have more sewer capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
You should have left it.
It's Joe's
Yeah.
fault.
and not to say that in the very near term, even to medium term, that we would be looking towards a manager position, but I don't think that can completely be off the radar.
Right.
And I think
Things
we've
evolve.
been with the town administrator now for a number of years, and I think that we've all realized the value in having that formal position, and how can we kind of solidify that formality and show to any potential future town administrators that we're serious, that it's a position that we value and that we take seriously and everything. So that's just kind of I understand also that it's what are we gonna get out of it, and it's hard to say because it requires a public input.
Right.
It's kind of funny, Mr. Chairman, that the town managers, a lot of them have 9-member town councils. So it doesn't really
So
kinda
you're saying we
cross-
need more selectmen?
No, I'm just saying that. I'm saying that you don't need a role.
Can't keep 5.
The selectman role as the town gets larger,
Yeah.
the policy decisions get more complex.
Yeah.
So that's why you need more selectmen, because as you get bigger, the policies are more complex and a lot more for you guys to actually do. As the town gets bigger, there's usually more money involved, so.
And by the way, we're still worried about water,
Yeah.
having enough
Okay.
water, so
There you go.
we're not out of the woods.
That's true. That's another issue we have to address. Carol or Skip, do you have any input into?
And I think it had come out of free cash a few years ago was where the allocation had come from, so it wasn't a budgeted line item that was, I mean, it was budgeted, but it had budgeted out of free cash versus,
Budget, right.
right,
It's in an article right now, so the question really is, do
right.
you want to vote to move forward and have me hire the counselor and do a contract with them or not? That's really where we're at.
Karen?
Karen Narwhal, 149 Palmagussit Road. Is there a reason why we can't leave this until after, like, you know, maybe bring this up after the budget season? I mean, there's really no push, but at least the money is there. I mean, cause as we all know, you let that money go, we might not have it when we want it. It's a good savings account.
I mean, I kinda see your point, but it was money that the townspeople already spent, in my opinion, they voted to spend it, so. And
I'm
it's
in
been
agreement.
how many years we've been putting it off? When did this pass?
2019, at the annual town meeting.
I kinda think as I
With
understood
COVID though, that kinda put a
Was
lot
that
of
what
it,
it
cause.
Yeah.
COVID slowed it down.
It definitely was, yeah, it definitely was derailed by COVID because we were pushing to do it and then Mike, I think, ended up leaving and with COVID, it was all of that timing. So it's derailed a little bit, but I mean, I personally see the value in it. It was something that I had pushed for, but I understand that there are some reservations and everything.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
And this was at a special, or?
I think it was an annual.
It was the annual town
Oh,
meeting,
was
the
that
one
the
that we
annual?
had up on the hill by Glenwood.
So November 14th.
Oh, no, it was a special.
Yeah, that's a special,
It was a
that's why I didn't understand.
It was a special.
I thought it was at the annual town meeting, so I must be wrong.
Yeah, just because it says November, so this was a special.
So, Mr. Chairman, no matter what you do here, you're gonna have people that love it and hate it.
Right.
So no matter what you do here, there's gonna be people that love charity.
I just
and
wanna
love
honor
charity.
the residents, now, when you started talking about COVID and it was at a special and everything was, did we have a good representation?
It was
Really
it was a special before COVID. It wasn't a
Yeah,
special during
okay.
COVID.
Okay,
Now, Mike told us that once you have 10,000 people, you need to have a charter.
okay.
That's what we were told. And we
Well, no,
were approaching that
I don't
quickly.
think every town that has 10,000
Maybe
or more has a
not,
charter.
but we
I
were
don't
told that
believe
that would be a smart way to do it. I mean, so I'm just saying that
We're getting there.
we're getting there
Right.
quickly.
About 92.
You're confusing me, now you're fighting for or against it, I don't know where you're going.
I don't think you should let the money go,
So,
because once the
if you-
money's
'cause
gone,
if-
we'll never be able to
Right,
get
but
it
if you're
back.
saying we're gonna have to do it anyway, then we're not gonna, maybe not gonna have the money to do it in the future.
Right.
And maybe it's gonna cost that much more.
Right.
So there's way too many unknowns. I mean, like I said, I hate to pull money that was voted on by residents.
My understanding was the
Okay,
process
fine.
is kind of like a 12 to 18 month timeline, so it definitely wouldn't be ready for this annual.
Oh, yeah.
Because we would have to seat a board, a commission or a board or whatever, a charter commission and everything like that. So, is my understanding from
Right.
when Collins was here before. So there's ample opportunity to provide feedback and.
Right. But like I said, my concern too is like, and I guess you said that you got them down to 20,
20,000. It was
25.
originally
I'm just
22,
afraid
I
it's
think.
gonna go up.
Right.
22,
As a matter of fact, to be honest with you, you're gonna have to ask them to make sure they'll still do it. I'm sure they will, but
yeah.
I remember I got them to come down $2,000 because we didn't have it quite enough for what they wanted as a contract for. I'm sure they would do it. They were, when they came, they kind of thought that night it was gonna be approved and stuff, and kind of after that, we just haven't talked to them, so.
All right, so I'm open for any kind of a,
I would make a motion that we move forward with the
study.
study.
Or,
It's gonna be, Mr. Chairman, if I can comment, it's gonna be specifically with the Collins Center, because really they're the only major firm that does it, other than a couple of oddball type people. But we would move forward, and I would bring forward, if this motion goes forward, I bring back a contract with the Collins Center, just to be clear.
do I have a second? All right, so we're gonna have an impasse. So I don't know, maybe we will just, I don't wanna take the money out yet. Do we want to maybe just possibly consider delaying it?
So I guess my question then is, if the board's not comfortable, what other information? What are the concerns? What's the other information? Do you feel like it's not necessary completely, or is there just not? You want to research?
I wanna look more at
We can do a little more on my own benefit, for my own self.
I mean, I almost feel like we're not ready for it
I
quite
don't
yet.
either. That's
and,
why I didn't.
But like I said, my main thing was the people voted for it, so
Yeah.
that's the reason I support that end of it. But, yeah, I don't know that we're quite ready, we're there yet, but.
So do you want a motion to put that on hold for 6 months or a year?
Do we, it was just a discussion, do we have to?
Yeah,
do
no,
anything?
I mean,
You guys had previously taken a vote to do that, to put it on.
yeah, so we'll just take no action at this time and leave the funds,
Okay.
right?
All right.
I don't think we need a motion for that at this point.
And I guess, I mean,
Do
I was
more
just, no, and that's fine, I was just curious, like, what the feedback is for, you know, I was personally surprised to hear some of the hesitancy in the last time we talked about it, and so I think it's valid, and I think that's good. I just wanna know what the hesitations are, and if I'm told, like, if,
Right.
you know,
Well, I think I kinda explained, like,
Yeah.
the differences in charges and whether
Yeah.
we're ready for it and
yeah,
you know, the town, I think, like Karen and people have said, we're going to eventually have to go that way anyway, but,
yeah.
We're ready. The one of those, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm one of those voted for it, so
Yeah.
we're ready.
So, I mean, that's
I'm-
fine, I'm amenable to whatever, I just.
So like, I mean, we definitely don't wanna take it off the table, or take the money away at this point.
No.
I don't think it's appropriate. Alright,
So just for my own kind of common knowledge, do you want me to bring it back up in 3 months or 6 months, or how do you want me to deal with this?
um,
Do you want me to get you any
I
information?
mean, yeah,
What
we
do you want?
probably should discuss it, you know, somewhere towards the end, before the end of the year again, so
Okay.
is it, if we
Want me to
wanna
put
do
it on the
anything
December
spec-
agenda sometime maybe, or what do you think?
I'd probably put it after the first of the year
Okay.
sometime.
And if anybody has any questions about it and you want information, I'd be happy to reach out to Council or whoever else to help you in making your decision if you feel there's something you don't know.
Or in the
or wanna
meantime,
know.
if you wanna talk to any of the towns that do or don't have charters, it's always good. Like I said, I do go online, I started looking, you can look
Yeah.
online at different charters to get an idea of what towns are doing and stuff, and which ones have them and don't have
And
them.
I don't remember, Tamika, off the top of my head, what meeting we had the Collins Center in, because that might, like, I often go back and will rewatch parts of meetings just to, for my own information,
Thank you, I'll
so,
do that too.
You can, I can look back and see
If-
what,
if
and
it's
just
easy for
write
you.
an email with a date, and then that way you can get a recording and.
Meek,
Yeah,
I
got
had
it.
Beth do that already, so just check with
Oh.
Beth, cause I asked her to do that, so if you just check with her. I
Okay.
thought it might even be in this area, but I did talk to Beth about that, and she looked up and found the date that was done, so.
The date of our meeting,
The
where we
date,
discussed
the
it?
meeting where we
Okay.
discussed it last time.
I know it was on Zoom, but I don't. Thank you guys, I appreciate it.
Thanks. Next thing on the agenda is discussing of utilizing money of ARPA funds for the ServeSafe training for COA, so I'm gonna actually.
So, Lyndon and I talked ahead of time about this. Full disclosure, Lyndon is going to not be involved in the conversation because of Nancy, but also my mother would be recipient of the self-serve training that we're gonna talk about. So, but that leaves not many people here to talk about it. So I'm going to just bring up the discussion that I had with Nancy Nichols. This is safe serve training. It would be for 12 people, 3 kitchen staff. One is also the president of the Friends, 3 board members who are also involved in other town events, 1 Friends member in addition to the one mentioned above, and 4 Board of Health members, including the health agent and Nancy herself. So this is Safe Serve, which is, I think it's would go along with your new kitchen. The Board of Health does things as far as other serving things and knowing about how to handle food and temperatures and storage and all of that. So that's what this is all training for. The training is $1,600 for the 12 people. Every I guess it's every 6th person is free. So we're paying for 10, 12 are being trained. Nancy did in her email to us suggest that there was also an allergies portion of the training that she was going to suggest that people that receive the the serve training do on their own expense, on their own time. And so my question back to her is, allergies is a big deal, and everywhere you go, you see, please inform your server of any allergies. So I said, please go back and find out what that training is and see if they have time to do it and how the cost of it. She had originally been quoted $70 additionally for per person, which would have been, I want to say $500. It would have been $700. And she called me today and she negotiated with the person, and they will do it for an additional $50 a person. So to have the Safe Serve along with the allergy training would be, for 12 people, would be a cost of $2,100, and it would come out of the ARPA fund, and
So we're good for 3 years, I think.
it's 5 years.
Oh, 5 years.
It's good for 5 years. So I asked a lot of the who, what, when, where, I have questions, and I got an essay. So I think it's a great thing. The reason why I asked about doing the allergy training was because I personally think it's doing half the job to get the Safe Serve and not do the allergy, and I thought that that was an expense that probably people would not want to take on themselves, and if we could use the funds that we have to add that in, and then I think the package is complete. But I think it's a good idea, and I said that I would bring it to the board.
Did you say 3 members of the Board of Health?
3 members of the Board of Health.
Why
And it
aren't
is
they paying for their own?
Well, it's ARPA fund, so it's not just for the,
For people who are gonna serve at the senior center, just serving the Board of Health, they're gonna provide service at the senior center, serve food, that's why they need it. They're not doing it Board of Health members, they're doing it because they're gonna be providing food, or serving food at the senior center.
But I mean, they probably don't have the, well, I don't know if they'd have the budget for it either. Well, they're asking us for money
There's
for the
nothing there.
the
We didn't
flu
give them
shots,
money
but
for that.
Yeah.
possibly.
So, I would like to make a couple of comments here. First of all, we're not providing a financial benefit to any particular person. We're providing training for Safe Surf to provide a service for our senior center. So I don't see this as a value to an individual in the way that it, so on a personal level, and I'm not the ethics czar in the state, but I don't see this as any real controversial issue people can vote or not vote on. If you want to abstain, that's up to you guys, but I don't really see this as a big conflict of interest. I think it does make sense. I've talked to Nancy, and I think the 2,100 is a total of small dollars for something that's going to provide public safety and service of food. So I think it is a good value. I just want to make sure, in the record, at least from the town manager's position, I don't see this as any conflict of interest or anything. It's nickel and dimes, and you're not giving somebody $600 or $200. We're just providing training to provide a service for the citizens of Rutland. So I just want to make sure that that's documented for the record.
I have a question. Has this gone out to any of the other department heads? I don't know what rec does, or if there's any other department heads that would be serving food anywhere. If they're doing, because I know like pool staff, is that ServeSafe?
Do they actually prepare, like cook food and prepare it, I think?
oh, I think it's serving
Well,
it.
if that were true, that would come under the revolving fund for the recreation department. If they have to have food, ServeSafe for the food they have there, they really don't cook anything. I think they hot dogs, but I'm not sure that requires food safe training. I can check with them, but that would be a separate funding mechanism. That would come under the revolving fund if that was the case. I think this is the only department where we're looking at where they're going to have a remodeled kitchen at the senior center, and they are going to provide some meals. I think the Meals and Wheels people probably are already ServeSafe. This is for other people to provide like a lunch for the senior center members.
They're not even fully ServeSafe.
The Meals and Wheels people?
Because they're not really preparing them, they're packaging
packaging
them and giving them. So there is some certification, but it's not,
full.
so they're not
full
even
certificate.
able to manage that kitchen fully.
And I'm just trying to understand why this could come out of ARPA, but like something for any other town, and I say rec, but I don't want to only say rec, couldn't come out of ARPA. Why?
The reason this would follow under the public health benefit, and I think I talked to you about different buckets they have within the
Yeah.
ARPA funding. There's a public health bucket that this would fill under. And with COVID, for them to be able to provide food and safe services with COVID, infectious diseases, we believe that this will fall under that mechanism
Yeah.
for the public health mechanism. There are a lot of things that don't fall under those
Yeah,
buckets, but we're comfortable this one
I
does.
don't understand if there are other departments that serve.
But we don't have any other departments that serve food, except that I think the only thing I can think of is the pool house, and that's even is more like give you a bag of potato chips. The only thing I remember is a hot dog over there. But if they do food serve safe over there, they have a fund that they can access for a revolving fund. They can do it. So they don't need this money for that. I don't know if they even have to be serve safe over there. I tend to doubt it, but I
If
could
they
check.
have, then they're.
Yeah, I don't know. We can, but I'm not worried about
I
because we have a
think
way to
Somebody
You-
did.
we have a
you say
deal,
that
way to deal with it. So.
This is a different issue. I support this. I was just wondering if
Right,
if
I see where you're
I
coming
can't
five
think of anybody
plus
else.
one, but you keep saying that there's revolving fund, but we know that given COVID and everything, like their funding is being depleted and they're being more and more responsible for pool repairs. So that's a different
Yeah.
conversation. My point was if there's any other groups in town that are serving that can get involved in this, I think it's a wise use of money for sure. I'm not arguing that. And
I just can't think of it.
if there's, I was just
I
curious if there was a
Is it
conversation.
Another town group? Another town? Oh,
Yeah, no,
I can't think of any other
no,
town
I don't
group.
think they should be included into it. That's why I'm not even gonna mention their
I
name.
don't even know, I don't know of any town, other than the school system, any town group that serves
Fire
food.
station got a kitchen?
Who?
Fire station got a kitchen?
Yeah, but that's they're serving their own members and they're making their own food. That's not ServeSafe. You're not serving to the general public. I can't think of anybody else that does it.
Still
If
call
you
them
have somebody in
public.
mind, I mean, I just can't think of anybody else that does it. You know, but-
Would you like a motion to approve this? Because I'll be more than glad to do so, because I think it's a worthy,
I do
Cause.
too, but now you got me thinking with
With what?
Dick's question about. I mean, it's on public property. If somebody gets sick, who's responsible?
yeah,
You
but
think
they
what, the
cook
fire
their own,
department's-
they cook their own food. They don't cook for, you can't walk
Right.
in there
It's not
and
for the
cook for you.
Right.
They're cooking their own food for their own purpose. So I
And
don't
it's not,
think
it's
they
not,
need.
and it's the brigade, or it's like it's extensions, it's not the department itself that's actually preparing and serving food. So it would have to be the nonprofits that are doing the fundraising that would have to worry about it. And I don't know that we can cover the nonprofits.
Can I just give you an
No.
example? I often in towns, I do a breakfast for Christmas for employees and I cook eggs and stuff. I'm not required to have ServeSafe because I'm just doing it with town employees. It's when you actually serve the general public and
Yeah.
stuff that you have to have ServeSafe. And I mean, I've had the health directors in there, you never
Well,
said to
if
me,
we
you gotta have
find
food
out-
ServeSafe, so.
If we find out,
We could deal with it, yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, we could always bring it back for
Yeah,
additional funding
I just
for
was
other
curious.
groups. But no, and no, I see where you're coming from, it makes sense, but, I'm thinking that those are like the nonprofit groups that are doing fundraising, that I'm not sure how, and I don't even wanna go there, 'cause I don't wanna get anybody in trouble,
I
but,
don't think
yeah,
we can do that at all.
right. And even like with rec, I don't think that that's the
Tell me
town
what you
selling
think about
food,
it.
that's the, I don't know how that works, to be honest, cause you can't,
Regardless, they don't have staff right now
right.
that would be doing that, so that would have to be something that would come out next
At the time.
summer when they have staff
In
to
the
be
spring or
self.
summer, right.
I mean, right now, their staff is either in school or in college.
And if worse comes to worse, we'll send one of the members of the Board of Health over and they can oversee it and we'll be all set.
Yep.
Because, no, honestly, as long as there's somebody there
Somebody
that can
there,
oversee
yes,
it,
yes, yes.
then so the Board of Health would have the ability to oversee any kind of food preparation. So,
So do we have a motion?
I made one, yes.
Oh, we had discussion.
And it's
Yeah.
for the
Second.
it's for the
$2,100.
$2,100 to cover
$2,100,
the
yeah.
$2,100 to
allergy.
cover the allergy.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
12 people.
Wait a second.
and I am gonna abstain, only because it's my wife that presented it.
Oh, yeah, we have no problem with
I'm
that.
very paranoid about conflict.
Roll call.
Clock eye.
Abstain. Equals-
Whitman, I.
Benoit, aye.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Discussion on street number issues, Bond Road and Main Street.
Mr. Chairman, this is an interesting little issue, and spent a great deal of time discussing this issue with the town clerk and had to get legal counsel involved. So there's two residents that technically live on Main Street, but there's no access to their house on Main Street. In order to get to their house, you can only go on Bond Street, which is technically in Holden, not in Rutland. So the problem is that in theory, if 911 dispatches somebody, there's no Rutland address they would know where to go to. And when they get packaged, we have at least one of the two residents who, whenever he tries to get packaged from the post office or UPS or anything else, there's no address on Bond Street in Rutland. So me and the town clerk went through this and had to come to the conclusion we had to have an attorney to tell us the answer to this
This isn't
question.
uncommon to have roads split in town.
Well, they usually have some road that goes on to a house, and for mailing purposes, this is a little bit of an oddball kind of thing.
It was straightened out later on.
Yeah, so anyway, it's caused major anxiety for at least one of those two residents who suggests he's gonna get a lawyer, and, you know, and frankly, we just wanna fix this thing for him. So me and Anita, we called up the town attorney and asked about this, and one of the concerns is if we recognize Bond Road as an address in Rutland, who owns the road and the control of the road, was that an issue or not? And the attorney has assured us that no. Just because the address is on Bond Road in Rutland doesn't mean we have to accept responsibility for the road, because we don't own the road. We don't have any, although we do own a tiny sliver of it, I'm told. So the attorney's assured us that that gives us no obligation to, you know, fix the road or do anything with the road. It's still a Holden road. All it does is recognize the address as a Bond Road in Rutland, which will allow emergency services to go to the house, which will allow the post office to deliver. So all we're doing is recognizing that as an address in Rutland, not as a town-owned road or any of that stuff. So I'm looking for a motion that would allow us to set up addresses on Bond Road for those two residents.
Doesn't this all have to be like the post office to make these determinations?
We have
How
to,
does the town?
the board is, what comes down to, and this was the question, is who controls property in town and who does streets and all that stuff, and it's the board of selectmen who does all that. It's the town who does that, it's not the state, not the federal government. We just notify the post office of what the address is, and then the post office delivers to us. So this was the attorney's recommendation. He thinks that this is a simple problem that we can address easily through that process. This is why Anita is on, but I'm not sure she can add to what we said, because she was in the same meeting with the attorney that I was.
So my question is I remember the three new houses, newish houses, right on,
Oh,
right
right
at
in
the
the
farm?
swamp on the right
Right at
side.
Sanderson,
Two,
Sanderson.
yeah. One neighbor isn't complaining so
How
much,
is-
although he
how
wants
is
it
that-
fixed up.
That was never Main Street, those houses are not on Main Street,
But
they
the
are
property
on
is
Bond
on
Street.
Main
Property's on Main
Street,
Street.
so,
They have frontage on Main Street or something.
No, they
And-
don't.
Yes,
like
they
I
do.
say, the planning board has straightened this issues out now, it'll hopefully never happen again. But back then,
I mean, their driveways come right off of right off of Bond Street.
Bond
Street.
Street, but the frontage is on Main Street,
122 at Hooksville.
and it's called elusive frontage, and the planning board now knows that, because town
Wow.
council straightened us out.
So they probably got the building permit because they had the frontage on Main Street. but
This
actually
probably
had
should have been
access
done
on
that way,
Main
but it
Street.
is what it is, so we
Well,
have
they
to.
couldn't do that because it's all wet.
That's right.
This guy, can't, you know, his
Can't
mail
get there
doesn't
from
come to
here.
his house, and he, you know, all kinds of stuff. His bills are late, and it, you know, he's really upset by it. And truthfully, I can't blame him because
If we had a
and-
PO
and
box.
I had a lot of
If I wasn't
discussions-
getting all my stuff, I would have
That's
a PO
right.
box.
And a lot
PO
of discussion with
box.
911
honest.
with communications about this because it's dangerous.
Right.
If the ambulance goes,
Right.
they go to Main Street, they can't get into the property. So we need to have Bond Street as an address.
But I guess when I was reading it, I don't understand how you can have Bond Road Holden be recognized as Bond Road Rutland.
The address
Holden,
is a
Rutland.
Rutland address on Bond Road, but it's just an it's all it's recognizing it as an address in Rutland as a way
I guess
to
I just
describe
was,
it.
I don't know how still, I mean, our emergency services will be, they're gonna get it,
Yeah.
cause they're so,
And the post office will
It's
get it
small,
once we
but-
have that.
wow.
I have a hard time believing the post office is fine with that saying it's a different address. when
Well,
it's
that's
not.
what we were told by the attorney, what they would recognize as an address in Rutland, even though it's not our road, it's an address in Rutland.
So,
Yeah.
Actually, I just wanted to point out that even before Ron and I spoke with the KP attorney, we reached out to Mass GIS that we now send new road street numbers to, and they're the ones that actually offered this solution that we ran by the attorney. Because it's been a few years since those houses were built, and they've had constant problems. And at the time, the only legal, we had to issue Main Street addresses as the legal address, And then the driveways follow the exact town line. So these two homeowners pay no taxes to Holden. It's all to Rutland. And the problem has come because they've kind of gone back and forth about using the street addresses that were used for their driveway access. So the Mass GIS that we reached out to offered this solution that would be your board or the town, as representatives for the town, just acknowledging a bond road. So it would be Bond Road Rutland, and that's how they would ping everything, so that it would help with emergencies and also getting packages delivered, which we're all doing way too much of nowadays.
And does Holden have to buy in
That's
on
what I
this?
was,
No,
No.
Holden still
No.
owns the road, all we're doing is creating an address is all we're really doing.
Yeah, we're creating an address on their road.
It's
And because we own a slight sliver of the road, we were Mass GIS believes that we can go ahead and do this. And before we talked to town council, we ran it by Mike Moriarty and also Seth and Joe got involved. So, can you still hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and will this, and GPS will recognize this as well, even though it's really not in Rutland? So if somebody puts it in the address?
Well, the entire property is in Rutland, and
No, but if
that's
you
what
put
they're
that address in Rutland on your GPS, are you gonna end up there?
That's what Mass GIS is telling us, and their 911 Mass GIS through the Secretary of State's office. So it seems like an easy solution.
The only solution we
and
could find, and it's the legally
Google does
approved solution.
GPS.
I guess the question would have been why, when we allowed the driveways to go into a different road.
well,
Just-
that's a whole different
Yeah,
issue.
this is why you don't do that.
Needless to say, this will make at least one resident of the two extremely happy. The other one, I'm told, is okay with this too.
Well, no, he does have some issues too, but yeah, it's definitely one that's been contacting us, and
So,
it seems like a relatively easy solution that's not going to incur any kind of liability for the town, for any part of the road, of Bond Road.
They're not gonna have to plow it, right?
so I will say if I put it in like GPS,
It's-
it comes up, it shows the house, but it defaults
It's
it to
not
Jefferson.
there yet.
Right.
It's,
But it,
yep.
I mean, it shows exactly where it should be, but it defaults it to Jefferson instead of
Right.
Rutland.
I mean, I understand all the reasoning of it, it's just kind of craziness, but.
Yep,
I mean,
that's
I
kind of
guess
what
I have, you know.
We had a lot more
It's
discussion.
gone
about
through all,
it.
if everybody's good with it, then I mean, I don't have a problem with it. but-
So we would be looking for a motion that allows these two houses to have a recognized address on Bond Street in Rutland.
Bond Road.
Bond Road in Rutland.
so moved,
Do we have
what
a
Ron
second?
said.
Tamika wrote down.
What Ron said.
Yeah, what Ron said.
What Ron said, that's good. Thank you, Tamika.
And do we have a second?
Second,
Any other discussion? Roll
Clock
call.
eye.
Benoit eye.
Whitman, I.
And Nichols' eye. Alrighty.
And planning board is taking care of this issue to not allow.
They don't, no,
Yeah,
that
I
other
know.
issue there, they have.
They understand the
Yeah.
complexity of this, they're not gonna do it again, I hope.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. So just goals and objectives, Economic Development Plan Committee, I know that's been posted, have you had any other inquiries?
So, like I said, I have 4 right now, and I want to bring this on the table 2 weeks from now for the next selectmen's meeting, so I'm gonna work my tail off this next 2 weeks to get at least one other member. And the reason I'm doing it is because I don't wanna lose the members I have while
Right.
they're waiting, so. My intention is to bring this to the next select board meeting for at least 5 members.
What the hell have you been doing? It's been 2 weeks since you said you were gonna do that.
I keep
2 weeks
waiting
ago.
for somebody to sign up, and I just, not the big drive. I
Go
know.
out there and beg.
I have 2 other people who will help, who will be involved, but they work and they're afraid that they can't leave work. They're at the Four Corners restaurant and they work those hours, so they're afraid, they wanna participate, but they don't wanna be on the board because they're afraid they won't be able to make the meetings. 2 of the girls that are there, so I need people.
Well, they're
that-
closed right now.
Yeah, but the rest of the year they're worried about.
Well,
worried
then
about
you'd
it.
work around it. you know.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna find
It's a
one
small
other
enough
person.
group, you could all probably
and get this
Go
for the next
there and
meeting.
have a
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, have it there.
Yeah,
Have it there.
have it there.
All right, website, anything, updates on the website?
I'm gonna try to get on Damien's calendar in the next few days.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
She said Monday, at the beginning of next week, she would meet me again, because I wanna get all the contracts up. So maybe Monday, if you wanna come and learn with me that day,
Okay.
we're gonna do it, I think it's gonna be Monday, so I asked her to schedule, when she sends me, when she's available, I'll send you the link and you can come visit.
Boards and commissions, we posted the other ones, or?
Yeah, everything's up to date, I think I sent you guys the link to that, the schedule is on the website, it's completely up to date, so, the struggle is just getting people to join, that's the hard part right now. We're obviously looking for anybody who's watching, we're looking for members of a host of different boards and commissions, if you're interested, please let my office know.
Human resources, we talked about the reviews, the
Yeah.
goals, the vacancy for the clerk.
Yeah, we're looking at, we may end up, it's kind of odd, because one of the candidates is applying for the position of assistant town clerk as an internal candidate. So if that internal candidate happens to get the job, then we're gonna be looking for another position to fill that position, so, I just want you to know that this, the hiring of one
How
person.
many hours is that one?
28 hours.
So is that benefits?
Yeah.
Can I just squeak in one more thing about human resources?
Sure.
Joe gave us an org chart, and I would love an org chart for every other department in the town. So,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
I've been wanting one
Yeah, that's come
for
up
a
several
long
times,
time,
that's a
so-
reasonable thing.
Yeah,
I
we'll have
would
to
like
look
an
and see and
org
try to
chart.
do it, yeah.
It's not, you don't have to do it.
Well, I know I get
department
assigned
heads.
to different departments, but yeah, we need a, Joe, you have a good template for that, for the org charts?
Any word processor has
Has
a
a good
template
template for that,
for
yeah, all right, yeah.
I do
we
mine
could
in
do it.
Excel.
We'll figure it out, well, I'll talk to the department heads about that.
And also under human
Sure, police
resources,
and fire
I know
already
we did the cost of living and then the planner and the clerk, but I know there's been a lot of talk about the other, we talked about at that meeting briefly about coming up with the figure of what it is to resolve any of the other.
Well, we're gonna deal with that, for the annual town meeting, we're gonna look at stipends for the annual town meeting.
I don't know if that will come up at the special town meeting, and
No.
somebody might want a number, so they may be looking for.
Yeah, I don't
it.
think it, right now, I know Becky hasn't worked on that number, that's another big chore she's gotta do it. And the problem with that, it's not just, it's an easy number, it's how to make it work, cause it's just all over the board what happened to different departments, so it's not, I don't think it's as simple as getting a number, it's trying to figure out a process to make that work, but.
Right, but that's something that,
Yeah, we could look at that, I'm just not sure it's gonna be
Leah,
ready,
do you
it's
wanna
not gonna be
just
ready for
maybe-
Thursday night,
You
I'll
wanna
tell you
take the
that.
lead on following up on that,
Yeah.
'cause you're
Yeah,
probably.
it's not gonna be
Mind
ready
doing
for
that?
this Thursday, I know that.
But I think be prepared for.
Yeah, I've already
questions.
told Becky that there's something we gotta work on for the annual town meeting, cause we should bring it forward to see what we can do.
Okay, and I know on budgets and financials, I know you and Karen were going to go, did you guys meet already?
Yeah, we just,
Yeah.
I.
So do we wanna have another joint meeting, do we wanna start some more in-depth discussions? Are we ready for that?
I don't know, as soon as I get all the information, I'll send it out.
Oh, all right.
I'm waiting for a few more little pieces.
All right, no, I mean, it's on your time, I
But
just
we
wanna
also-
know when you think we have,
We wanna start working on the budget too,
Yeah.
right, so.
Has the budget memo gone out?
No, it's too early. So that doesn't happen till late November is when that usually goes out, so.
It's almost late November.
It is.
yeah,
It's middle
Next
November.
week's late November.
we
It's
are.
actually the 15th.
We're getting there closer, yeah.
Yeah,
If I-
well, we have Thanksgiving next week and town
Right
meeting
after
this week,
Thanksgiving,
and
Christmas.
so
If I
It's
may,
done.
it'll be
Has there been
sooner
an
than later.
update on the letter to the school from all 5 towns?
So the answer to that question is that I talked to the town accountant in Sterling, last week. And the Sterling board was gonna vote on it Thursday night, and I gave my cell phone number to call me and tell me what the result of that vote was. Friday I ended up having some dental work and I didn't come in, I told Lynn I was not gonna be in. So I need to give him a call tomorrow to find out what the result of that was. It sounds like he's gonna be the interim town administrator for at least a short period of time from his discussion. So I'll talk to him tomorrow and find out what the result of that was.
Because I thought
But
everybody except Paxton had signed on.
Sterling had not.
Oh.
We thought that was true, but it turned out that Paxton's okay, it's done, but Sterling is the one that we're waiting on.
And what about the FinComs, did you get the?
FinCom, the Holden FinCom has supported it, and our FinCom has supported it, and they're working on the other towns. But
So
our first
so
wave
they'll
of
have that too.
support will be, and frankly, I kinda like it in two pieces. Will be
Mhm.
the, the select boards, and then we could do one as FinCom. I think we wanna do it and hit them more than just once, so I think it's a good thing to do it that way.
And then at some point, we're meeting with our school committee members as well to discuss.
Well, that's something that the town administrators, the plan was for town administrators
Right.
to meet with their school committee members. I did that last year, as you recall, but we should all individually meet with it. If a select member wants to be involved with that, I'm happy to have him join me.
I just wanna make sure that they're part of the discussion with these
Oh, yeah,
letters
they
going out,
could
so.
clearly be part of the discussion, yes.
And is there a meeting set with the district for a roundtable? I know generally.
They did say December is the letter we got, Karen?
Mhm.
December, I don't think they set the day
No,
exact,
no,
did they?
it was set, it
December.
said
What's the date,
6:30,
remember?
December 9th, 6:30 at the Holden Senior Center.
Yeah.
And I know the FinCom asked that the letter be signed and in the hands of the district before then, so that
Yeah.
that roundtable would be more.
And-
So,
Yeah, I
Peter-
thought my understanding was the letter would be out well before the roundtable,
Right.
just as.
So
like-
Peter sent me a draft of the letter already. It seems like this has been done in the past. There was a draft of the 5 towns signing on to a letter, so he sent me a template that he had. And he said, once Sterling votes, he's just gonna reformat that letter and redo it for a current process. But he's got the seals of the 5 towns and everything all set up, so.
I mean, I think it had gone out after the roundtable.
Right.
No, this is gonna go out before the
Right,
roundtable.
well, and that was my hope, but I mean, December 6th is, or
We'll,
9th or
matter of
whatever.
fact, this will happen, we'll have that discussion tomorrow if Sterling voted and move it forward. The only thing we're waiting on is for that final vote.
And who will be responsible for sending out the FinCom?
We'll get it out, me and Peter will work with the FinCom members and get it out and put it
Okay.
together, yeah.
And there's a FinCom and a select board member that's supposed to be at the
For the
roundtable?
roundtable, that's generally what's happened. They've had one FinCom member and one Board of Selectmen member at the, I know that truthfully, I can be honest with you, I think last year we dragged FinCom tickets because everybody's frustrated with that meeting.
Well, we've
I mean,
been,
it really
I've
is
been to
frustrating.
many through the years myself, and I find it very
Yeah, it's a waste of time, people feel.
Yeah,
I mean, I hate to
yeah.
say it, that's the reality. And it was like, well, why am I gonna go? They ignore what we say anyway. So
Mhm.
that's why we kinda set up this other process, but, I mean, I'm sure if I ask Karen to go, she'll join us with it.
No,
No,
Karen
she's
already,
not
she
going.
made it
Nope.
very clear. that
You don't
she's
want any
not
part of
going.
it?
I think
I'd
that
have my fingernails extracted before I go
Darren's
to that
gone, right?
meeting.
Yeah,
Darren-
see what I mean?
Darren signed
I
on,
think
so
we
I
got
will
you to
have a
come
member
last
of the
time, though.
finance.
I think we did get you to come, didn't we,
Nope.
last time? I thought somebody from FinCom signed on.
You
I know
wanna
me
go?
and Mitch were on,
I'll
but.
go.
All right, and Carol will go, so Darren
Oh,
and Carol.
okay.
And I usually try to go and sit, but not.
Because
for-
Yeah, anybody
like,
can sit
can
on the
go and
background,
sit.
yeah.
It depends, I
We
think
get
one year I
nothing
was on
out of it.
another meeting or
The
something.
letter's never been
I've
signed.
done that too.
Ever.
I don't know if I can even handle that.
It was-
I find it very hard to sit in my seat without.
I
All
wanted
5 towns had a clear
letters to
message
go out well
and they
before.
Right.
completely
So
ignored
that
what we said. It
Yeah,
was,
so hopefully they'll go out the end of the.
And they're gonna do it again.
yeah, they may well.
Gets that.
They will. They just don't give a damn.
All right, I'm getting tired. There's a
Motion
list of
adjourned.
our future meetings, so obviously we'll have a brief meeting before the special town meeting. All right, and then the next full select board meeting, we'll do the TA review as well.
As of right now, we're not expecting anything at the pre-town meeting. At least right now.
We always do that just to
Yeah.
have time.
You're right.
Even
All
at the very least, like, go through who's reading what or whatever, but,
Yeah, we'll have time to do
there
that.
you go.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I did motion.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye. Clock eye.
And I
Nichols, no. Just kidding.
You wanna-